The rain hammered against the diner window like tiny fists, and Mia Turner had exactly $4 in tips and 40 minutes left on her shift when the door burst open. A little girl stood there, soaked to the bone, her thin dress clinging to her small frame, her lips almost blue from the cold. She could not have been older than 6. Her eyes were wide, darting, terrified, and she said nothing at all. Mia dropped the coffee pot she was holding onto the counter, not caring that it cracked, and rushed toward the child. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" Mia asked, kneeling down so she was eye level with the girl. The child did not answer. She only trembled, her small hands clenched into fists, her gaze fixed on the door behind her as though something terrible might come through it at any moment. Mia glanced at her manager, Ellen, who was already reaching for the phone to call the police. But something about the way the girl flinched at the word police made Mia raise her hand. "Wait," Mia said. "Let's just get her warm first. Look at her. She's freezing." Ellen hesitated, then nodded, setting the phone down but keeping it close. Mia grabbed the spare blanket kept behind the counter for cold nights and wrapped it gently around the girl's shoulders. Child did not resist. If anything, she leaned into Mia, as though the warmth of another person was the only thing keeping her upright. "What's your name, honey?" Mia asked softly. The girl's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Finally, in a whisper so quiet, Mia almost missed it, she said, "Lily." "Lily," Mia repeated, smiling gently. "That's a beautiful name. I'm Mia. Are you hungry?" Lily nodded, just barely. Mia led her to a booth in the back corner, away from the window, away from the door, somewhere that felt safer. She brought a plate of pancakes, warm and dripping with syrup, and a mug of hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Lily ate slowly at first, then faster, as though she had not eaten in a long time. While the girl ate, Mia studied her carefully. Her clothes, though soaked and muddy, were expensive. The stitching on her dress was fine, delicate, the kind of thing Mia had only ever seen in store windows she could never afford to shop in. On her wrist was a small silver bracelet with a charm shaped like a crescent moon. Something about this child did not add up. She was too well dressed to be a runaway from a poor home, yet she had wandered in soaked and alone, with no coat, no shoes even, just thin socks caked with mud. "Lily, where are your mom and dad?" Mia asked gently. The girl's fork clattered onto the plate. Her whole body went rigid. "They took them," Lily whispered. "Bad men came. I ran. I hid in the trees. I don't know where I am." Mia's heart clenched. She kept her voice calm, even though alarm bells were ringing loudly in her mind. "Who took them, sweetheart? Can you tell me?" Lily shook her head fast, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm not supposed to talk about it. Daddy said if bad men ever came, I should run and not tell anyone anything, not until he found me." Mia glanced toward Ellen, who was watching from behind the counter with wide eyes. This was more than a lost child. This was something serious, something dangerous, and Mia felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Okay," Mia said gently. "You don't have to tell me anything else right now. You're safe here with me, all right? I'm not going anywhere." Lily looked up at her, and for the first time since she had walked through the door, something in her small face relaxed, just slightly. She reached out and grabbed Mia's hand, holding it tightly, as though it were the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly turned upside down. Outside, the storm continued to rage, thunder rolling across the dark sky. Mia kept glancing toward the window every few seconds, watching the parking lot, the road beyond it, waiting for headlights, waiting for anything that might explain who this child was and where she had come from. She did not have to wait long. A black car pulled into the lot, its headlights cutting through the rain like blades. 2 men stepped out, both wearing dark coats, both moving with a strange, deliberate calm that made Mia's skin prickle. They were not panicked. They were not searching the way worried parents would search. They moved like hunters. Lily saw them through the window and froze completely, her small body going stiff as stone. "Hide me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please, those are the bad men." Mia did not hesitate. Years of working long shifts in a diner had taught her how to think fast, how to read a room, how to act before fear could take hold of her mind. She grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the small supply closet behind the kitchen, tucking her inside among the stacked boxes of napkins and cleaning supplies. "Stay quiet," Mia whispered. No matter what you hear, stay quiet. I will come back for you. I promise. Lily's eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded, clutching the blanket tightly around her small shoulders. Mia closed the closet door softly and walked back out, just as the bell above the diner's front door rang. The two men stepped inside, shaking rain from their coats. Up close, they were even more unsettling. Their eyes scanned the diner with cold precision, missing nothing. "Evening," Mia said, forcing a casual smile as she wiped down the counter. "Coffee? We've got a fresh pot." The taller of the two men ignored her offer. "We're looking for a child. A little girl. About 6 years old. Brown hair. Might be wearing a blue dress. Have you seen her?" Mia kept wiping the counter, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure they could hear it. "Can't say I have. It's been a slow night. Just me and my manager here." The second man stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied Mia's face. "You're sure? It's important. She could be in danger out there in this storm." Something about the way he said danger made Mia's blood run cold. It did not sound like concern. It sounded like a threat disguised as concern. "I'm sure," Mia said, her voice steady even as her hands trembled slightly beneath the counter, out of view. "Maybe try the gas station down the road. They've got cameras out front. Might have seen something." The men exchanged a glance, some silent conversation passing between them. Then the taller one nodded toward the door, and they turned and walked back out into the storm without another word. Mia stood frozen until the black car pulled out of the lot and disappeared down the dark road. Only then did she let out the breath she had been holding. Ellen rushed over from the kitchen, her face pale. "Mia, what on earth is going on? Those men. There was something wrong with them. I've never seen anyone look so cold." "I don't know," Mia admitted, hurrying toward the supply closet. "But I'm not calling anyone until I understand what's happening. That little girl is terrified of something, and I am not handing her over to men who give me chills just standing near them." She opened the closet door gently. Lily was curled up in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, eyes red from crying but silent, exactly as she had been told. "They're gone," Mia said softly, kneeling down. "You're safe." Lily launched herself forward, wrapping her small arms around Mia's neck, holding on so tightly that Mia nearly lost her balance. The girl's whole body shook with quiet sobs, relief and exhaustion crashing over her all at once. "Thank you," Lily whispered into Mia's shoulder. "Thank you for not giving me to them." Mia held her close, rubbing gentle circles on her back, the way she used to comfort her younger cousins when they were small. "I would never do that, sweetheart. Never." As she held the trembling child, Mia had no idea that this small act of kindness, this simple decision to trust her instincts over the strange men's words, had just placed her directly at the center of a world she did not yet understand. A world of power, of danger, and of a family desperately searching for the little girl now clinging to her, as though she was the only safe place left on earth. Outside, the storm began to ease, the thunder growing distant, but somewhere out there, more people were coming, people who would not be so easily turned away. And Mia, without knowing it, had just become someone very important indeed. Ellen locked the front door early that night, flipping the sign to closed even though there were still 15 minutes left on the clock. Neither of them wanted to take chances. Mia carried Lily to the small back office, wrapping her in a second blanket, and setting her down on the old couch that Ellen sometimes used for quick naps during double shifts. "We need to think about what to do next," Ellen said quietly, glancing toward the door as though the men might return at any moment. "We can't just keep a child here overnight, Mia. This isn't right. What if her parents are searching for her right now?" "I know," Mia said, sitting on the edge of the couch beside Lily. "But something is very wrong here. Those men were not worried parents or concerned neighbors. Did you see their eyes? There was nothing kind in them." Ellen rubbed her arms as though a chill had settled into the room. "You're right, it was strange. Almost like they weren't fully human, if that makes any sense." Mia looked down at Lily, who had begun to drift into an exhausted sleep, her small hand still clutching a fold of Mia's apron, even in her unconscious state. "Lily," Mia whispered gently, brushing damp hair away from the girl's forehead. "Can you tell me your last name, or your daddy's name? I want to help you get home safely, but I need to know who to call." Lily's eyes fluttered open, heavy with sleep and fear. He's important. People call him something special, but I'm not allowed to say it to strangers." He said it's a secret because of bad people. What about your mommy? Mia asked carefully. A shadow crossed the little girl's face, and her lower lip trembled. Mommy is gone. She went to heaven a long time ago. It's just me and Daddy now. And Nathan, who watches me sometimes. Mia's heart ached at the simple, matter-of-fact way the child spoke about losing her mother, as though grief had become such a familiar companion that it no longer needed dramatic words. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, Mia said softly. Lily yawned, her eyelids growing heavier by the second. Are you going to leave me too? The question struck Mia like a physical blow. She took the girl's small hand in both of hers and held it firmly. No, Mia said, her voice steady with certainty. I am staying right here. I promise you, Lily. I am not going anywhere. Satisfied, the little girl finally allowed sleep to take her completely, her breathing evening out, her small body relaxing for the first time since she had stumbled through the diner door. Ellen watched the exchange with a soft expression, some of the earlier tension in her shoulders easing. You're good with her, she said quietly. Really good. Mia shrugged, though her eyes remained fixed on the sleeping child. I don't know. There's just something about her. She feels like she needs someone in her corner right now, and I happen to be the one standing here. Outside, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, and the parking lot lights flickered against the wet pavement. Mia kept glancing toward the window every few minutes, half expecting the black car to return, half hoping that whoever Lily's family was, they would arrive soon, and end the uncertainty hanging over the small back office. Near midnight, headlights swept across the parking lot again, but this time, there were several vehicles, moving in careful formation, rather than the single reckless car from before. Mia's stomach tightened as she peered through the blinds. Men and women stepped out of the vehicles, dressed in dark, practical clothing, moving with quiet urgency, rather than the predatory calm of the earlier visitors. At the center of the group walked a tall man, whose presence seemed to command the entire parking lot without him saying a single word. Even from a distance, through rain-streaked glass, Mia could feel the weight of his authority. Ellen, Mia whispered, I think this might be them, the real search party. Ellen peered through the blinds beside her. How can you tell the difference? Look at how they move, Mia said. Those men earlier looked like they were hunting something. These people look like they're desperate to find someone they love. The tall man reached the diner door and knocked firmly. 3 sharp raps that echoed through the quiet building. Mia's heart pounded as she made her way toward the door, glancing back once at the sleeping child curled up safely in the back office. She unlocked the door slowly, keeping her body positioned as a barrier in the doorway, unwilling to reveal anything until she understood exactly who stood before her. The man's eyes were the first thing she noticed, a startling shade of amber that seemed to catch even the dim porch light and hold it. His expression was carefully controlled, but underneath that control, Mia could see something raw, something desperate. My name is Damien, he said, his voice low and steady despite the visible tension in his shoulders. I'm looking for my daughter. She's 6 years old, brown hair. She would have been terrified, possibly hiding from strangers. Please, if you have seen her, if you know anything at all, I am begging you to tell me. Mia studied his face carefully, searching for any hint of the coldness she had seen in the 2 men earlier that night. She found none. Instead, she saw exhaustion, fear, and a desperate love that could not be faked. Before I answer anything, Mia said carefully, I need to know one thing. 2 men came here earlier tonight, asking about a little girl matching that same description. They gave me chills, and I did not trust them for a second. Are you connected to them in any way? Something dark flickered across Damien's face, a flash of fury quickly suppressed. Those men work for the family that took her from our home tonight. If they found her before I did. He stopped himself, his jaw tightening. Mia made her decision in an instant. She stepped back from the doorway, opening it wider. She's safe, Mia said. Come inside. She's sleeping in the back, and she is perfectly fine. Relief crashed over Damien's face so completely that for a moment, the powerful, controlled man standing before her looked like nothing more than a frightened father. He moved past her quickly, but carefully, following her toward the back office, as though every second of delay was unbearable. When he saw Lily curled up safely on the couch, breathing peacefully, something in him seemed to break open. He knelt beside her, his large hand hovering just above her small shoulder, as though he feared that touching her might reveal this moment to be nothing more than a cruel dream. "Lily," he whispered. The little girl's eyes fluttered open, and the moment she saw him, she launched herself into his arms, with a cry of pure joy. Damien caught her easily, holding her against his chest, with the kind of desperate tenderness that only comes from nearly losing something irreplaceable. Mia stood in the doorway, watching the reunion, with tears gathering in her own eyes. She had done it. She had kept the little girl safe until her father arrived. Her part in this story, she assumed, was finished. She had no idea that it had only just begun. Damien held Lily so tightly that for a moment he seemed unable to let go, as though releasing her even slightly might cause her to vanish again into the storm. Mia stood quietly by the doorway, giving them space, her arms wrapped around herself as the adrenaline of the night slowly began to fade. "How did she get here?" Damien asked finally, lifting his head to look at Mia, his amber eyes still bright with unshed emotion. "This diner is miles from our home. She should not have been able to walk this far, not in this storm, not at her age." Mia shook her head. "I don't know how she got here. She just appeared at the door, soaked through and shaking. She wouldn't tell us much, only that bad men had taken her parents, and that she ran and hid in the trees." Damien's expression darkened. "Her mother passed away 2 years ago. It would have been her guardian, Nathan, and myself at the house tonight." "She mentioned Nathan," Mia said. "She said he watches her sometimes." Damien nodded slowly, processing this information with visible effort, his mind clearly racing through possibilities Mia could not begin to understand. "I need to call my people. I need to know if Nathan is safe, if the house has been secured." He set Lily down gently on the couch, though the little girl immediately grabbed his sleeve, refusing to let go completely, even as he tried to step away to make his call. "It's all right, sweetheart," Damien said softly, kneeling to her level. "I am not leaving. I just need to talk to Marcus for one moment. I will be right here the whole time." Lily's grip loosened only slightly, and Damien stepped a few feet away, pulling out a phone and speaking in low, urgent tones that Mia could not fully make out. She caught fragments, words like, "secure the perimeter," and "confirm Nathan's location," words that painted a picture far more serious than any ordinary family emergency. When Damien returned, his face had regained some of its earlier composure, though tension still lined his jaw. "Nathan is safe. He was injured trying to protect Lily, but he will recover. The house has been secured for now." "Injured?" Mia asked, alarm creeping into her voice. "What exactly happened tonight?" Damien hesitated, his eyes flicking briefly toward Ellen, who stood a few steps back, watching everything unfold with wide, uncertain eyes. "I cannot explain everything right now," Damien said carefully, "but I owe you both an enormous debt of gratitude. You protected my daughter when you had no reason to. No obligation, nothing to gain. That kind of courage deserves more than a simple thank you." Mia waved a hand, feeling suddenly self-conscious under the weight of his gratitude. "I didn't do anything special. Anyone would have done the same for a frightened child." "No," Damien said firmly, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch slightly. "Not everyone would have. Those men who came here first, the ones you turned away, they were sent by people who wanted to use my daughter as leverage against me. If you had handed her over, if you had been frightened or careless, the outcome tonight would have been very different." A chill ran through Mia at his words. She glanced at Lily, who was watching the adults talk with the quiet, careful attention of a child who understood more than she let on. "Leverage," Mia repeated slowly. "Are you saying someone tried to kidnap her on purpose? That this wasn't some random crime?" "It was very much on purpose," Damien said grimly. "My family has enemies, powerful ones. Tonight was an attempt to weaken us by taking what matters most to me." Ellen stepped forward finally, her earlier caution giving way to practical concern. "Then shouldn't you be calling the police? This sounds like something serious, something that needs proper authorities involved." A flicker of something unreadable crossed Damien's face, gone as quickly as it appeared. "My family has its own ways of handling these matters. It is complicated, and I would rather not burden either of you with more details than necessary. Please understand, I am only trying to protect you both by keeping certain things private." Mia frowned slightly, sensing there was far more beneath the surface than Damien was willing to share, but exhaustion and the lingering fear from the night made her decide not to push further. Whatever secrets this powerful, sorrowful man carried, were not hers to demand. Lily, still clutching her father's sleeve, suddenly tugged hard enough to draw his attention downward.
Daddy,
She said, her voice small but insistent. Mia has to come with us. Damien blinked, clearly caught off guard. Sweetheart, Mia has her own home, her own life. We cannot simply ask her to come with us. But I want her to, Lily said, her lower lip beginning to tremble in the universal warning sign of an approaching tantrum. She kept me safe. She hid me, and she didn't let the bad men find me. I want her to stay with us. Please, Daddy, please. Mia's heart clenched at the desperate pleading in the little girl's voice. She knelt down to Lily's level, taking her small hands gently. Lily, sweetheart, I have my job here, and my own home. I can't just leave everything behind. Tears welled up instantly in Lily's eyes, and her breathing hitched as panic began to overtake her small frame. No, you promised. You said you weren't going anywhere. You promised me. I did promise you were safe, Mia said gently, trying to soothe the rising distress. And you are safe now, with your daddy. But Lily was already shaking her head furiously, tears spilling down her cheeks, her small body trembling, with the kind of overwhelming emotion that only exhausted, traumatized children can produce. I don't want just Daddy. I want you too. Please, don't leave me. Please. Damien looked utterly helpless in the face of his daughter's distress, clearly a man far more comfortable commanding powerful forces than soothing a heartbroken child. He glanced at Mia, something like desperation in his own eyes now. Perhaps, he said slowly, choosing his words with obvious care. Perhaps there is a compromise. My daughter has been through significant trauma tonight, and honestly, over the past 2 years since losing her mother, if you were willing, even temporarily, to stay with us at the estate while she recovers from this incident, I would compensate you generously for your time. It would not need to be permanent. Mia hesitated, glancing between the desperate hope in Lily's tear-streaked face and the careful, controlled request in Damien's eyes. Every practical instinct told her this was an enormous, complicated decision to make in the middle of the night, in the aftermath of genuine danger, with a man she knew almost nothing about. But then Lily's small hand found hers again, gripping tightly, and the girl looked up at her with such raw, open trust that Mia felt something inside her chest simply give way. How long would you need me? Mia asked quietly. A few weeks, perhaps, Damien said. Just until she feels secure again, until we understand the full scope of tonight's threat and ensure our home is properly protected. Mia thought of her small, empty apartment, the diner job that barely covered her bills, the quiet loneliness that had settled over her life since her divorce had left her starting over with almost nothing. There was little waiting for her that a few weeks away would truly disrupt. All right, Mia said finally, and the words felt heavier and more significant than she expected as they left her mouth. I'll come, but only until Lily feels better. Then I need to return to my own life. Lily let out a sound that was half sob, half joyful laugh, throwing her arms around Mia's neck with such enthusiastic force that Mia nearly toppled backward. Damien's shoulders visibly relaxed, relief washing over his controlled features. Thank you, he said quietly, and there was something genuine and unguarded in the simple words that made Mia believe, for the first time that night, that this powerful stranger might actually be someone worth trusting. Ellen pulled Mia aside briefly, while Damien gathered Lily's few belongings and spoke quietly on his phone once more, arranging transportation. Are you sure about this? Ellen whispered urgently. You don't know anything about these people, Mia. Powerful families, enemies, kidnapping attempts. This is not normal. This is dangerous. I know, Mia admitted quietly. But did you see that little girl's face? She has already lost her mother. Tonight she nearly lost everything else too. I can't just walk away from that kind of pain when I might be able to help ease it, even a little. Ellen sighed, though her expression softened with reluctant understanding. Just be careful. Call me. Every day if you can. I will, Mia promised. Within the hour, Mia found herself seated in a sleek black vehicle, Lily curled against her side, already drifting toward exhausted sleep once more, while Damien sat across from them, his sharp eyes fixed on the dark road ahead, his mind clearly still racing through the dangerous puzzle of the night's events. As the vehicle pulled away from the small diner that had been Mia's entire world for the past 3 years, She felt a strange mixture of fear and anticipation settling over her. She had no way of knowing what awaited her at the end of this dark road, no understanding yet of the world of secrets, power, and supernatural danger she was about to enter. She only knew that a frightened little girl had called her safe, had trusted her completely, and that trust, fragile and precious as it was, felt like something worth protecting, whatever the cost might turn out to be. The drive stretched on longer than Mia expected, the city lights fading behind them, until only dark countryside surrounded the vehicle, thick forests pressing close against the narrow road. She watched the trees blur past the window, her mind spinning with everything that had happened in just a few short hours. "You must have questions," Damien said eventually, breaking the silence that had settled over the car. His voice was quieter now, less guarded than it had been at the diner. "Many," Mia admitted, "but I'm not sure where to even begin." "Ask what you need to ask," he said. "Within reason, I will try to answer honestly." Mia glanced down at Lily, whose breathing had evened into deep sleep, her small face finally peaceful after the chaos of the night. "Who were those men? The ones who came to the diner first, before you arrived?" Damien's jaw tightened, the muscle flexing visibly beneath his skin. "They work for a family that has opposed mine for a long time. Old rivalries, disputes over territory and resources that go back further than either of us has been alive. Tonight they saw an opportunity to strike at something they knew I could not bear to lose. And the estate you mentioned," Mia continued carefully, "is it truly as heavily guarded as it sounds? Lily talked about a house, about Nathan protecting her. It sounds more like a fortress than a home." "It is both, in a sense," Damien said, his eyes flicking toward her briefly, before returning to the road. "My family carries certain responsibilities, certain obligations to the community we oversee. Those responsibilities come with enemies, and enemies require protection. I know that must sound strange to you." "Strange is one word for it," Mia said, a faint, tired smile tugging at her lips, despite the surreal nature of the conversation. "Terrifying might be another." A ghost of a smile crossed Damien's face, the first genuine softness she had seen from him all night. "I promise you, within the walls of my home, you and Lily will both be perfectly safe. I would not have brought you there otherwise." The vehicle eventually slowed, as it approached a set of tall iron gates set into a stone wall that stretched as far as Mia could see in either direction, disappearing into the darkness of the surrounding forest. Guards positioned near the entrance nodded respectfully as the gates swung open, allowing the car to pass through onto a long, winding driveway lined with ancient oak trees. Mia pressed her face gently against the window, taking in her first glimpse of the estate beyond. Even in the darkness, she could make out the impressive silhouette of a grand stone house, warm light glowing from several windows despite the late hour, as though the household had been anxiously waiting for their return. "It's beautiful," Mia murmured, unable to hide her genuine awe. "It has been in my family for generations," Damien said quietly, though tonight, admittedly, it felt less like a home and more like a battlefield. The car came to a gentle stop before the grand entrance, and immediately, several figures emerged from the house, moving quickly toward the vehicle, with obvious concern and relief mingling on their faces. A woman with kind eyes and graying hair reached the car first, practically pulling the door open before the driver could assist. "Is she all right? Is Lily safe?" the woman asked urgently, her eyes darting past Damien to find the sleeping child curled against Mia's side. "She's safe, Grace," Damien said, gently lifting his daughter into his arms, as Mia carefully extracted herself from beneath the sleeping girl. "Thanks to this young woman here." Grace's eyes turned toward Mia, taking in her appearance with obvious curiosity and gratitude in equal measure. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for bringing our little one home safely." Mia felt suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of gratitude directed her way, the grandeur of the estate looming around her, and the exhausted uncertainty of everything that had happened since she had first heard the diner door burst open just hours earlier. "I just did what anyone would have done," Mia said quietly, though she was beginning to suspect that perhaps not everyone would have. As Damien carried his sleeping daughter into the grand house, with Mia following a few uncertain steps behind, she caught sight of another figure standing near the entrance, watching the arrival with narrowed, calculating eyes. A tall man with sharp features and an expression that held none of the warmth or relief the others displayed, his gaze fixed on Mia with something close to suspicion. Mia shivered slightly under his scrutiny, though she could not have said exactly why. Something told her that not everyone within these grand stone walls would welcome her arrival with the same open gratitude Grace and Damien had shown. As she stepped over the threshold into the warm, glowing interior of the great house, Mia had no way of knowing that this cold, watchful stranger would soon become one of the greatest obstacles standing between her and the fragile new life she was about to build within these walls. For now, she only felt the exhaustion of the long night finally catching up with her, and the strange, quiet certainty that her ordinary life had changed forever the moment she had opened that diner door to a frightened little girl standing alone in the rain. Morning light poured through unfamiliar curtains, and for a moment Mia lay still, disoriented, trying to remember where she was. Then the events of the previous night came rushing back. The diner, the storm, the frightened child, the long drive through darkness to this enormous house. She sat up quickly, taking in the room around her, tastefully decorated in soft creams and warm woods, larger than her entire apartment back in the city. A soft knock sounded at the door before it opened slightly, and Grace peered inside, a warm smile spreading across her face when she saw Mia was awake. "Good morning, dear. I hope you slept well, given everything that happened." "I did, actually," Mia said, surprised to find it was true. Exhaustion had apparently overpowered any lingering nerves about her strange new surroundings. "How is Lily this morning?" Grace's expression softened further. "Better, I think, though still shaken. She has been asking for you since she woke, refusing breakfast until she could see you with her own eyes." Mia quickly dressed in clothes Grace had thoughtfully left for her, simple but well made, and followed the older woman through winding hallways lined with portraits and tall windows overlooking manicured gardens. The scale of the house continued to astonish her with every new room they passed. They found Lily sitting at a long dining table, swinging her legs anxiously, her small face brightening the instant she spotted Mia entering the room. "Mia," Lily called out, scrambling down from her chair to run across the room, wrapping her arms around Mia's legs in an enthusiastic hug. "Good morning, sweetheart," Mia said, laughing softly, as she knelt down to properly embrace the girl. "Did you sleep all right?" Lily nodded, though her expression grew slightly more serious. "I had a bad dream, about the men, but then I remembered you were here, and it got better." Mia's heart clenched at the simple, honest way children processed fear and comfort, without pretense or complication. "I'm glad I could help, even from another room." They sat together at the table, and Mia was quickly introduced to the daily rhythms of the household. Grace, it turned out, had served as head of household staff for nearly 2 decades, a warm and steady presence who had helped raise Lily since her mother's passing. Several other staff members drifted through during breakfast, offering polite nods and curious glances toward the new arrival. Damien appeared briefly, dressed formally, his expression carrying the weight of a man with urgent matters demanding his attention. He paused at the table, his eyes softening slightly as he watched Lily chattering happily beside Mia. "I have meetings that will occupy most of my morning," he said, addressing Mia directly. "Security matters, following last night's incident. Grace will show you around the estate and help you settle in. Please, treat this as your home for as long as you remain with us." "Thank you," Mia said, still feeling slightly overwhelmed by the formality of it all. As Damien turned to leave, the same sharp-featured man Mia had noticed the previous night entered the dining room, his eyes immediately narrowing when they landed on her. He was tall, impeccably dressed, with the kind of controlled posture that suggested significant authority within the household. "Damien," the man said, his voice carrying a note of barely concealed disapproval. "A word, if you have a moment." "Nathan," Damien replied, and Mia realized with some surprise that this was the guardian Lily had mentioned, the man injured the previous night protecting her. Though looking at him now, she could see no obvious signs of injury, beyond perhaps a slight stiffness in his movements. The two men stepped a short distance away, though not so far that Mia couldn't catch fragments of their lowered conversation. "Is it wise?" Nathan said quietly, though clearly not quietly enough, bringing an outsider into the estate during such an unstable time. "We know nothing about her background, her intentions." "She saved my daughter's life," Damien replied, his tone carrying a warning edge. "That earns her more trust than you seem willing to extend." "I am simply being cautious," Nathan said. Given everything at stake, given everything we still don't understand about last night's attack, perhaps caution is warranted rather than gratitude. Mia felt her cheeks flush with discomfort, pretending to focus intently on the food in front of her rather than acknowledge she had overheard the tense exchange. Lily, seemingly unbothered by the adult tension nearby, continued chattering about her favorite games and the garden she wanted to show Mia later that day. Damien returned to the table briefly, his expression carefully neutral, though Mia could sense the lingering tension from his conversation with Nathan. "Please excuse Nathan," Damien said quietly. "He takes his role as head of household security quite seriously, sometimes to the point of excessive caution. Please don't let his concerns trouble you." "It's all right," Mia said, though privately she wondered how many other members of this household might share Nathan's suspicion of her sudden, unexplained presence. After breakfast, Grace led Mia and Lily on a tour of the sprawling grounds, through gardens bursting with late summer blooms, past a small pond where ducks paddled lazily across the surface, and eventually to a section of the estate Grace referred to simply as the Old Wing. "This part of the house isn't used much anymore," Grace explained as they walked through hallways with slightly faded wallpaper and furniture covered in protective sheets. "It holds a lot of history for this family, though. Portraits of ancestors, old records, that sort of thing." Mia paused before a large portrait depicting a striking woman, with kind eyes very similar to Lily's, her hand resting gently on the shoulder of a young boy, who bore an unmistakable resemblance to Damien. "Was this his mother?" Mia asked softly. Grace nodded, a note of sadness entering her voice. "The previous Alpha's wife, yes. She passed many years ago, though her memory remains deeply respected throughout the estate." The word Alpha caught in Mia's mind, an unusual title that she filed away to consider later, alongside the growing list of strange details that did not quite fit any explanation she could construct for this powerful, mysterious family. As they continued through the Old Wing, Lily suddenly tugged at Mia's hand, pulling her toward a smaller portrait tucked into a quieter corner of the hallway. "That's my mommy," Lily said softly, pointing toward the image of a beautiful woman with warm brown eyes and a gentle smile, holding an infant that Mia realized must have been Lily herself. Mia knelt down beside the little girl, studying the portrait carefully. "She was very beautiful, Lily. You have her eyes." Lily nodded, though sadness settled over her small features. "Everyone says that. I don't remember her very well, though. I was too little when she went away." "That must be very hard," Mia said gently, wrapping an arm around the girl's shoulders. "Sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like," Lily admitted quietly, "and that makes me sad, because I don't want to forget her completely." Mia felt tears prick at her own eyes, moved by the quiet vulnerability of the child's admission. She thought of her own mother, still very much alive, and felt a fresh wave of gratitude, mixed with sympathy for everything this small girl had already endured in her short life. "You know," Mia said softly, "even if you forget certain small details, the important things stay with you forever. The love she had for you, that never goes away, even when memories fade a little." Lily considered this thoughtfully, then nodded, apparently satisfied with the explanation. She reached up and took Mia's hand again, swinging it gently as they continued walking through the quiet hallway. Later that afternoon, while Lily napped following the emotional morning, Mia found herself wandering alone through the estate's expansive library, drawn by curiosity toward the countless books lining floor-to-ceiling shelves. She ran her fingers along worn leather spines, admiring the collection, when she noticed Nathan standing near a window at the far end of the room, watching her with the same guarded suspicion from earlier. "Can I help you find something?" Nathan asked, his tone polite but carrying an unmistakable chill beneath the surface. "Just looking around," Mia said carefully. "This library is beautiful." "It's taken generations to build," Nathan replied. "Much like the trust and security of this household, which took generations to establish as well." Mia met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated by his obvious implication. "I understand your caution, given everything that happened last night. But I promise you, I have no interest in causing harm to this family. I only want to help Lily feel safe again." Something shifted slightly in Nathan's expression, though his guarded posture remained largely unchanged. "Time will tell whether your intentions match your words. Forgive me if I withhold judgment until I see proof rather than promises." He turned and left the library without another word, leaving Mia standing alone among the towering shelves, uncertainty settling heavily over her, despite the earlier warmth of the morning spent with Lily and Grace. She was beginning to understand that not everyone within these grand walls would welcome her presence so easily, and that whatever mysterious dangers had brought her here in the first place were far from fully resolved. That evening, dinner was served in a smaller, more intimate dining room than the grand hall Mia had seen that morning. Damien joined them, looking somewhat less burdened than he had earlier, though tension still lingered around his eyes. "How was your first full day here?" he asked, watching Lily happily describe the garden tour to Grace, who nodded along with practiced patience. "Educational," Mia said carefully. "This is a very different world than the one I'm used to." Damien's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "I imagine it must be quite an adjustment. Please, if anything makes you uncomfortable, or if you need anything at all, do not hesitate to ask Grace or myself directly." "Actually," Mia said, deciding to address the tension directly, rather than let it fester, "I spoke with Nathan earlier. He seems concerned about my presence here." Damien's expression grew more serious, though not surprised. "Nathan has served this family faithfully for many years. His caution comes from loyalty, even if it sometimes manifests as suspicion toward newcomers. Please try not to take it personally." "I'm trying not to," Mia said honestly. "But I also don't want to cause tension within your household. I'm only here temporarily after all." Something flickered across Damien's face at her words, gone too quickly for Mia to properly interpret. "Of course," he said simply. "Only temporarily." Lily, apparently catching the tail end of the conversation despite her focus on describing garden ducks to Grace, suddenly interjected. "Mia isn't leaving soon, is she?" "Not soon, sweetheart," Mia reassured her quickly. "Not until you're feeling much better." Satisfied, Lily returned her attention to her plate, chattering about wanting to show Mia the small pond ducks the following morning. Damien watched the exchange with an unreadable expression, something contemplative settling behind his amber eyes. After dinner, once Lily had been tucked into bed with a story read aloud by Mia herself, insisted upon by the little girl despite Grace's gentle offer to handle bedtime duties, Mia found herself standing alone on a balcony overlooking the moonlit gardens below. The events of the past day and a half felt surreal, like she had stepped sideways into someone else's extraordinary life. Footsteps approached from behind, and she turned to find Damien joining her on the balcony, 2 cups of tea in his hands. He offered one to her silently, and she accepted with a grateful nod. "Thank you," Damien said quietly, staring out over the dark gardens, "for reading to her tonight. She hasn't allowed anyone besides Grace to do that since her mother passed." "She's an easy child to love," Mia said honestly. "Brave too, given everything she's been through." "She takes after her mother in that regard," Damien said softly, a wistful note entering his voice. "Elena was remarkably brave, right until the very end." Mia hesitated, uncertain whether to press further into such an obviously painful topic, but curiosity and genuine sympathy won out. "May I ask what happened to her?" Damien's grip tightened slightly around his cup, though his expression remained composed. "An illness that came on suddenly, and progressed faster than anyone anticipated. There was little anyone could do, despite every resource available to us." "I'm so sorry," Mia said quietly. "That must have been devastating, for both you and Lily." "It was," Damien admitted. "I threw myself into work, into protecting this family, and the community we oversee, and I fear I may have neglected properly grieving alongside my daughter. Watching her attached to you so quickly, so completely, it made me realize how much she has been missing these past 2 years." Mia felt a lump forming in her throat at the raw honesty in his words. "Grief doesn't follow a simple timeline. You've clearly been doing your best under very difficult circumstances." Damien turned to look at her directly, something searching in his gaze. "You have a remarkable way of offering comfort, Mia. It's a rare and valuable quality." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Mia couldn't quite name, before Damien cleared his throat and stepped back slightly, the careful composure returning to his features. "It's growing late," he said. "You should rest. Tomorrow, if you're willing, I would like to properly explain some things about our family, about the dangers we discussed last night. You deserve to understand more fully what you've stepped into." "I would appreciate that," Mia said, relief washing over her at the prospect of finally gaining clarity about the strange, dangerous world she now found herself inhabiting. As she made her way back to her room that night, Mia's mind buzzed with questions, with cautious hope, and with an unexpected warmth that had begun blooming, despite the surrounding uncertainty and danger. She did not yet know the full truth of what awaited her within these walls, but she found herself, against all logical caution, eager to discover it. Outside her window, the moon hung heavy and full over the silent gardens, and somewhere beyond the estate's protective walls, unseen enemies continued plotting, waiting for their next opportunity to strike against the family that had so unexpectedly welcomed Mia into its guarded, grieving heart. The following morning, Damien requested that Mia meet him in his private study, once Lily had settled into her lessons with the tutor Grace had arranged. Mia found herself nervously smoothing her clothes as she approached the heavy wooden door, uncertain what revelations awaited her inside. Damien looked up from behind a large desk as she entered, gesturing toward a comfortable chair positioned across from him. "Thank you for coming. I imagine you have many questions after everything you've witnessed these past 2 days." "More than I know how to organize," Mia admitted, sitting down carefully. Damien leaned back in his chair, studying her for a long moment before speaking. "What I am about to share with you will likely sound impossible. I ask only that you listen with an open mind before deciding whether to believe it." Mia nodded, curiosity overtaking her earlier nervousness. "My family," Damien began slowly, "holds a position of leadership within a community that operates largely outside public awareness. We oversee matters of protection, resource allocation, and justice among our people, much as any governing structure might, though our methods and traditions differ significantly from what you would recognize as ordinary society." "That sounds almost like organized crime," Mia said carefully, though something in Damien's earnest expression made her doubt that simple explanation. "Not crime," Damien said, a faint smile touching his lips, despite the seriousness of the conversation. "Though I understand why it might initially sound that way, our community exists alongside ordinary society, largely unnoticed, bound together by shared heritage and certain, let us say, unusual characteristics passed down through generations." Mia frowned, trying to piece together the careful, deliberate way Damien was framing his explanation. "Unusual characteristics? What exactly do you mean?" Damien rose from his desk and walked toward the window, his back to her as he continued speaking. "There are abilities within my bloodline, within many families connected to our community, that exceed ordinary human capability. Enhanced strength, heightened senses, accelerated healing. Abilities that have been carefully hidden from broader public knowledge for centuries, out of necessity and self-preservation." Mia sat in stunned silence, waiting for some indication that this was an elaborate joke, some twist that would reveal a more mundane explanation. But Damien's expression, when he turned back to face her, held nothing but solemn sincerity. "You're saying you're not entirely human," Mia said slowly, testing the words aloud. "I am saying that my family, and the broader community we lead, carries heritage that grants us capabilities beyond typical human limitation," Damien confirmed. "The title you may have heard, Alpha, refers to leadership within this community, a position I inherited from my father, who inherited it from his father before him." Mia's mind raced, pulling together disparate pieces of the past 2 days. The strange, predatory calm of the men who had come to the diner, Nathan's unexplained lack of visible injury, despite supposedly being hurt protecting Lily, the guards positioned around the estate, with an almost military precision. "The men who came looking for Lily at the diner," Mia said slowly. "They were part of this same community?" "A rival family, yes," Damien confirmed. "One that has long sought to expand their own influence at the expense of my family's authority. Taking Lily would have granted them significant leverage to force concessions from me, concessions that would weaken protections for the broader community I am responsible for safeguarding." "And Nathan's injury last night?" "Our healing capabilities are significantly enhanced compared to ordinary humans," Damien explained. "What might take weeks to heal for you could resolve within hours or a single day for someone within our community." Mia sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the sheer scope of what she was being told. Part of her wanted to dismiss it entirely as some elaborate fiction, yet another part, the part that had witnessed genuine, unexplainable fear in Lily's eyes and predatory coldness in those first men's expressions, recognized an unsettling truth beneath Damien's words. Mia asked finally, "Surely revealing something this significant carries enormous risk, especially to someone you barely know." Damien's expression grew more solemn. Because you have already been drawn into the dangerous consequences of our world, whether either of us intended it or not. Because my daughter has attached herself to you with a depth of trust I have not seen since her mother's passing. And because, he paused, seeming to weigh his next words carefully, because I believe you deserve honesty, given everything you have already sacrificed to protect Lily. Mia absorbed this for a long moment, her mind still spinning with the implications. What happens now? Am I in danger simply by knowing this? You are in less danger knowing the full truth than you would be remaining ignorant of it, Damien said. Understanding the nature of the threats surrounding this household allows you to protect yourself and Lily more effectively. Ignorance, in this case, would only leave you vulnerable. And the other members of your household, Mia said slowly. Grace, Nathan, the staff I've met, they're all part of this same community? Every person residing within these walls carries the same heritage, Damien confirmed. You are, at present, the only ordinary human within the estate. The weight of that realization settled heavily over Mia. She was surrounded, entirely alone in her ordinary humanity, within a household of people possessing abilities and heritage she could barely comprehend. Does that frighten you? Damien asked quietly, watching her reaction carefully. Mia considered the question honestly before answering. It should, probably. But strangely, it doesn't as much as I would expect. Everyone here has shown me nothing but kindness, aside from Nathan's understandable caution. And Lily is still just a little girl who needs comfort and safety, regardless of what else she might be. Something in Damien's expression softened at her response, a warmth entering his amber eyes that had not been present during the careful, formal explanation moments before. You continue to surprise me, Mia. Most people, upon learning this truth, would likely flee immediately, unable to reconcile the impossibility of what they've witnessed. Maybe I've simply had enough impossible things happen these past 2 days that one more doesn't feel quite as shocking as it should, Mia said, a tired smile tugging at her lips. Damien's answering smile held genuine warmth, a rare unguarded expression that transformed his typically composed features entirely. Regardless, I am deeply grateful for your understanding, and your continued willingness to remain here with Lily, despite everything you now know. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock at the study door, followed by Grace's entrance, her expression carrying obvious urgency despite her attempt at composure. Forgive the interruption, Grace said quickly, but there has been another development. Scouts near the northern boundary reported unusual activity overnight, tracks and scent markers suggesting the rival family may be testing our perimeter defenses. Damien's entire demeanor shifted instantly, the warmth from moments before replaced by sharp, focused alertness. Gather the security team. I want a full perimeter sweep conducted immediately. Grace nodded and hurried away, and Damien turned back toward Mia, his expression apologetic though tension had visibly returned to his shoulders. I apologize, but I must attend to this matter immediately. Please, remain close to the main house with Lily until I return. I do not believe there is immediate danger, but caution remains warranted. Of course, Mia said, rising from her chair, her earlier calm now tinged with fresh apprehension. As Damien moved past her toward the door, he paused briefly, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Thank you again for your understanding today. It means more than you likely realize. Then he was gone, moving with swift, purposeful strides down the hallway, and Mia was left standing alone in the quiet study, grappling with the impossible truths she had just learned, alongside the unsettling realization that the dangers surrounding this household remained very much active and unresolved. She made her way back toward Lily's lesson room, her mind still reeling, though a new clarity had settled over her understanding of the strange, dangerous, and increasingly meaningful world she now found herself navigating. Whatever came next, she realized with quiet determination, she intended to face it fully informed, and fully committed to protecting the small, trusting girl who had already claimed such an unexpected place within her heart. Mia found Lily seated at a small desk near a sunlit window, carefully practicing letters under the patient guidance of her tutor, a soft-spoken woman named Charlotte. The little girl looked up eagerly the moment Mia entered the room, abandoning her lesson without hesitation. "Mia, look what I wrote!" Lily said proudly, holding up a paper covered in careful, if slightly uneven, handwriting, spelling out her own name several times across the page. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Mia said, kneeling beside the desk to properly admire the work, grateful for the momentary distraction from the tension still coiled tightly in her chest, following Grace's urgent interruption. Charlotte offered Mia a polite nod, before quietly excusing herself, sensing perhaps that Lily's attention had been thoroughly captured elsewhere. Mia settled into the vacated chair beside Lily, doing her best to project calm reassurance, despite her racing thoughts. "Can we go see the ducks now?" Lily asked hopefully, apparently unaware of the security concerns unfolding elsewhere on the estate grounds. "Maybe we should stay a little closer to the house today," Mia said carefully, unwilling to alarm the child unnecessarily. "How about we find something fun to do inside instead?" Lily's face fell slightly with disappointment, though she nodded agreeably. "Okay, can we bake cookies? Grace lets me help sometimes." "That sounds perfect," Mia said, grateful for the simple, wholesome distraction the suggestion offered. They made their way toward the estate's expansive kitchen, where Grace's assistant, a cheerful young woman named Sophie, welcomed the idea enthusiastically, quickly gathering ingredients, while Lily excitedly described her favorite type of cookie in exhaustive detail. As they worked together, measuring flour and stirring batter, Mia found herself grateful for the ordinary, grounding nature of the task, a small pocket of normalcy amid the extraordinary revelations of the morning. Lily giggled as flour dusted across her nose, and Mia laughed genuinely for the first time since Grace's urgent interruption, the warmth of the moment easing some of her earlier tension. "You're really good at this," Lily observed, watching Mia carefully shape dough into neat rounds. "I used to bake with my own mother when I was young," Mia said, smiling at the memory. "It always felt like the safest place in the world, standing beside her in the kitchen." "I want to feel that way too," Lily said quietly, her earlier enthusiasm dimming slightly. "Safe, all the time, not just sometimes." Mia paused, setting down the dough to properly focus on the little girl's words. "You know, Lily, feeling scared sometimes doesn't mean you're not safe. It just means something frightening happened, and your feelings need a little time to catch up with reality. But I promise you, your daddy and everyone here is working very hard to keep you protected." Lily considered this thoughtfully, then nodded slowly. "I believe you," she said simply, before returning her attention to shaping her own slightly uneven cookie dough rounds with renewed enthusiasm. Hours passed, the cookies eventually emerging warm and fragrant from the oven, and still Damien had not returned from the northern boundary. Mia found herself glancing frequently toward the windows, watching for any sign of his return, though she carefully hid her mounting concern from Lily, unwilling to disturb the fragile peace the little girl had regained. Finally, as the afternoon light began stretching long shadows across the estate grounds, Mia spotted Damien's figure approaching the main house, flanked by several security personnel, his expression unreadable from a distance. She felt a wave of relief wash over her, quickly followed by fresh apprehension at the serious set of his shoulders as he drew closer. Lily, spotting her father through the window, abandoned her half-eaten cookie to rush toward the entrance, and Mia followed close behind, her heart pounding with uncertain anticipation. Damien knelt to embrace his daughter briefly before straightening, his eyes finding Mia's over Lily's head, something grave and unsettled visible in his expression that made Mia's stomach tighten with dread. "We need to talk," Damien said quietly, once Lily had been ushered toward Grace, to share her cookie-baking triumphs. "What we found at the northern boundary was worse than anticipated." Mia's breath caught, apprehension coiling tightly in her chest, as she braced herself for whatever difficult truth awaited her next. He led her a short distance away, out of earshot from Lily and Grace, his voice dropping lower as he spoke. "The tracks near the boundary were deliberate, meant to be found. It was a message, letting us know they could reach our territory whenever they choose. They want us anxious, distracted, unsure of when the next attempt might come." "Do you think they'll try again soon?" Mia asked, glancing instinctively toward Lily, who was happily showing Grace her flour-dusted apron. "I believe so," Damien said grimly, "which means I need to increase security measures significantly, both for Lily and for you, given your presence here has likely already been noticed by those watching our movements." "Me?" Mia asked, startled. "Why would I matter to them at all?" "Because Lily has grown attached to you," Damien said quietly, "and our enemies are skilled at identifying exactly where our vulnerabilities lie. You have inadvertently become one of them, simply by mattering so much to my daughter in such a short time." The weight of this realization settled heavily over Mia, an uncomfortable understanding that her presence here now carried real, tangible risk, beyond simply comforting a frightened child. Yet even as apprehension tightened around her chest, she found her resolve strengthening rather than wavering. "Then we make sure I'm properly protected too," Mia said firmly. "Because I'm not leaving Lily now, not when she's finally starting to feel safe again." Something shifted in Damien's expression, admiration and something warmer, mingling together as he studied her determined features. "Your courage continues to remarkable me, Mia. I will ensure every possible precaution is taken to protect you both." As the sun began sinking lower over the estate's protective walls, casting long golden shadows across the gardens, Mia felt the comfortable, ordinary rhythm of the afternoon's cookie baking give way once more to the tense, uncertain reality of the dangerous world she had chosen to remain within. Yet standing beside Damien, watching Lily's carefree laughter drift across the courtyard, she found herself more determined than ever to see this fragile, precious piece protected, whatever challenges still lay ahead. Weeks passed at the estate, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Mia found herself settling into a rhythm she never could have anticipated when she first walked through the diner door to find a frightened little girl waiting inside. Mornings began with Lily's enthusiastic wake-up calls, followed by breakfast where the girl chattered endlessly about her plans for the day, and Mia found herself genuinely looking forward to each new sunrise, rather than simply enduring another shift at the diner. Grace had become something of a mentor, patiently explaining the customs and traditions of the household, the subtle hierarchies among staff members, and the careful protocols surrounding matters of pack business that Mia was gradually being permitted to witness, if not fully participate in. "You're adjusting remarkably well," Grace observed one afternoon as they folded laundry together in a sunlit room overlooking the eastern gardens. "Most humans brought into contact with our world struggle far more significantly with the adjustment." "I suppose I've never been one to dwell too long on things I can't change," Mia said, smoothing a small dress that belonged to Lily. "Once I accepted the reality of what I was told, worrying about the impossibility of it all seemed rather pointless." Grace smiled warmly. "That practical nature of yours has served you well here. Lily certainly seems to benefit from your steady presence." It was true, Mia realized, that Lily had transformed significantly since that first terrified night at the diner. The nightmares that had plagued her initially had grown less frequent, replaced gradually by the ordinary joys and minor dramas of childhood. She had taken to following Mia through the estate like a devoted shadow, insisting on helping with whatever task occupied Mia's hands, whether folding laundry, arranging flowers, or simply reading together in the expansive library. Not everyone within the household had warmed to Mia's continued presence with equal enthusiasm, however. Nathan remained coolly polite at best, his guarded suspicion never fully dissipating despite weeks of Mia's evident dedication to Lily's well-being. She often caught him watching her during meals or household gatherings, his expression carefully neutral, yet somehow still conveying reservation. One afternoon, while searching for a misplaced book Lily had left somewhere in the estate's expansive study, Mia overheard a conversation that made her pause just outside the slightly open door. "The staff have grown quite fond of her," came a voice Mia recognized as belonging to one of the senior household members, a distinguished older man named Peter, who oversaw estate finances. "Even some among the security detail have commented on her genuine warmth." "Fondness is precisely my concern," Nathan's voice replied, sharp with barely restrained frustration. "This household cannot afford sentimentality clouding proper judgment, particularly now, with our enemies actively probing our defenses. She remains, whatever her intentions, an ordinary human, with no true understanding of the dangers surrounding us." "Yet she has proven herself capable under pressure already," Peter countered gently. "Perhaps it is time to extend her a measure of the trust she has clearly earned through her actions, rather than continuing to judge her purely on the basis of her humanity." "I judge her based on the unknown risks her continued presence introduces," Nathan replied firmly. "Damien's judgment has grown clouded where she is concerned, and I fear the consequences of that clouded judgment, far more than I fear any perceived unkindness on my part toward her." Mia stepped quietly away from the door, before either man could realize she had overheard their conversation, her mind turning over Nathan's words with a mixture of hurt and reluctant understanding. She could not entirely blame him for his caution, given the genuine dangers surrounding the household. Yet the implication that Damien's judgment had somehow grown compromised because of her presence left her feeling unsettled, in ways she wasn't entirely prepared to examine closely. That evening, as she helped Lily prepare for bed, the little girl's chatter turned unexpectedly toward the subject weighing on Mia's mind. "Nathan doesn't like you very much, does he?" Lily asked with the blunt honesty only children seem capable of delivering. Mia hesitated, unsure how much to share with the perceptive child. "I think Nathan is simply being careful, sweetheart. He wants to make sure everyone here is properly safe, and sometimes that means being cautious about new people." "But you make me feel safe," Lily said, frowning slightly as she considered this explanation. "Doesn't that count for something?" "It counts for a great deal," Mia said gently, tucking the blanket around the girl's small shoulders. "But Nathan has known your family for a very long time, longer than I have. It takes time to build that same kind of trust, and that's all right. We just need to be patient." Lily nodded slowly, apparently satisfied with this explanation, though her expression remained thoughtful as Mia dimmed the lights and prepared to leave the room. "Mia," Lily called out softly, just as Mia reached the door. "Yes, sweetheart? I'm glad you found me that night, in the rain." Mia's heart swelled with warmth at the simple, heartfelt admission. "I'm glad too, Lily. More than you know." Later that evening, Mia found herself once again on the familiar balcony, overlooking the moonlit gardens, a spot that had become something of a nightly ritual since that first honest conversation with Damien, weeks earlier. She was not entirely surprised when his familiar footsteps approached from behind, though the troubled expression on his face when she turned to greet him gave her sudden pause. "Is everything all right?" Mia asked, noting the tension visible in his shoulders. "I overheard part of a conversation earlier today," Damien said carefully, "between Nathan and Peter, regarding your continued presence here." Mia felt her cheeks warm slightly, uncertain whether Damien had overheard the same exchange she had witnessed, or perhaps a separate conversation entirely. "I may have overheard something similar myself." Damien's expression grew apologetic. "I want you to know that Nathan's concerns, however frustrating they may be, do not reflect my own assessment of your character or intentions. You have proven yourself invaluable to this household, and to Lily especially, time and again." "I understand his caution, even if it stings somewhat," Mia said honestly. "This is his world to protect, and I remain, as he pointed out, an outsider, without full understanding of everything at stake." "You understand far more than most humans ever could," Damien said quietly. "And you have demonstrated courage and loyalty that many within our own community would struggle to match." Mia felt warmth spreading through her chest at his earnest words, though she also noted, with a flutter of nervous awareness, how close he had drawn during the conversation, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold scattered through his amber eyes in the moonlight. "Damien," she said softly, "can I ask you something honestly?" "Of course. Why does my continued presence here matter so much to you, beyond simply Lily's attachment? You could have arranged additional caregivers, tutors, anyone qualified to help her heal. Why insist that it remains specifically me?" Damien was quiet for a long moment, his gaze searching her face carefully, before he finally responded, his voice lower and more vulnerable than she had heard it before. "Because Lily is not the only one who has found unexpected comfort in your presence, Mia. I find myself looking forward to these evening conversations far more than I probably should, given the complicated circumstances surrounding your arrival here." The admission hung in the air between them, charged with unspoken possibility, and Mia felt her pulse quicken as she processed the vulnerable honesty in his words. Before she could formulate a response, however, a sharp, urgent knock echoed from somewhere inside the house, followed by hurried footsteps approaching the balcony. Grace appeared at the doorway, her expression tight with urgency, that immediately shattered the intimate moment between them. "Forgive the interruption, but you both need to come quickly. There's been an incident near the eastern perimeter, and it involves Mia directly." Confusion and alarm flooded through Mia as Damien's expression instantly shifted from vulnerable warmth to sharp, protective alertness. Whatever tender moment had been building between them on the quiet balcony would have to wait, overshadowed once again by the dangerous reality of the world Mia had chosen to remain within. They followed Grace quickly through the darkened hallways toward the estate's security office, a room Mia had rarely entered during her weeks at the household. Several security personnel stood clustered around a bank of monitors, their expressions grim as they studied footage from cameras positioned along the eastern boundary. "What happened?" Damien demanded, his voice sharp with authority as he approached the monitors. One of the guards, a broad-shouldered man named Oliver, gestured toward the screen. "Motion sensors triggered near the eastern gate about 20 minutes ago. When we reviewed the footage, we found this." The screen displayed grainy nighttime footage of a figure moving stealthily along the tree line near the perimeter fence, pausing occasionally as though searching for something specific. Mia felt a chill settle over her as the figure paused directly beneath a security light, revealing sharp, calculating features, unmistakably similar to the two men who had visited the diner that first terrifying night. "That's one of Kessler's men," Damien said grimly, recognizing the figure immediately. "What does this have to do with Mia specifically?" Oliver hesitated before continuing, clearly reluctant to deliver whatever news awaited. "We intercepted a brief communication between two of their scouts, sir. They mentioned a woman by name, describing her in detail. The description matched Mia precisely." Mia's stomach dropped, cold dread flooding through her as the implications settled fully into place. "They know about me. They know I'm here." "It appears so," Damien confirmed, his jaw tightening with barely restrained fury. "Which means Nathan's earlier concerns, however unwelcome, were not entirely unfounded. Your presence here has indeed become known to our enemies, and they may attempt to use that knowledge against us." "What do we do now?" Mia asked, fear coursing through her as she processed the reality that she had inadvertently become a target within this dangerous conflict. Damien turned to face her fully, his expression hardening with fierce determination. "We ensure you remain properly protected, whatever measures that requires. I will not allow you to become vulnerable to their schemes, not after everything you have already sacrificed for this family." As security personnel scrambled to implement additional protective measures throughout the estate, Mia found herself standing quietly to the side, grappling with the frightening new reality that her simple act of kindness toward a frightened child had transformed her into a deliberate target within a conflict far larger and more dangerous than she had ever anticipated when she first opened that diner door to Lily's small, trembling figure. Yet even amid the fear coursing through her, she found herself unwilling to regret the choices that had brought her to this moment. Whatever dangers now lay ahead, she remained resolutely committed to seeing this fragile, precious family through the storm, still gathering around them. Later that night, once the initial flurry of security activity had settled into a more controlled, methodical response, Damien called Mia into his study once more, his expression grave as he outlined the additional precautions he intended to implement. "From this point forward," Damien said, "you will not leave the main house without an escort. I know this may feel restrictive, but until we better understand the scope of Kessler's intentions toward you, I cannot risk your safety otherwise." Mia nodded, though a flicker of frustration passed through her at the sudden restriction on her freedom. "I understand the necessity, even if I don't love the idea of being confined." "It will not be forever," Damien assured her. "Once we neutralize this immediate threat, matters will return to a more comfortable normal." "Will they, though?" Mia asked quietly. "Or will there always be another threat? Another rival family, scheming to exploit whatever vulnerability presents itself next?" Damien's expression grew somber at her pointed question. "I wish I could promise you a future entirely free from danger, Mia, but the truth is, the world I inhabit rarely offers such simple guarantees. What I can promise is that I will do everything within my power to protect you and Lily both, for as long as you remain willing to stay within these walls." Mia studied his earnest expression for a long moment, weighing the fear still coursing through her against the powerful sense of purpose and belonging she had found within this strange, dangerous household these past weeks. "I'm not planning on leaving, Damien, not because of a little danger." Something like profound relief and admiration flickered across his features. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for your courage, and for choosing to remain despite everything this world has already asked of you." As Mia finally retired to her room that night, her mind remained restless with the weight of everything she had learned and experienced since Grace's urgent interruption on the balcony. Yet beneath the fear and uncertainty, she recognized a steady, unwavering resolve settling firmly into place within her heart. Whatever Kessler and his family intended, whatever dangers still lay ahead, she would not abandon Lily, nor the fragile, growing connection she felt developing with Damien himself. Sleep came slowly that night, filled with restless dreams of shadowy figures moving through darkened forests, searching relentlessly for something precious they intended to claim. But when morning finally arrived, bringing with it Lily's familiar enthusiastic knock upon her bedroom door, Mia rose with renewed determination, ready to face whatever challenges the coming days might bring, however uncertain the path ahead remained. The days following the discovery of Kessler's scouts near the eastern boundary brought a new intensity to life within the estate. Guards patrolled the grounds with heightened vigilance, and Mia noticed the household staff exchanging worried glances whenever unfamiliar sounds echoed from beyond the property walls. Despite the underlying tension, however, Lily's daily routines continued largely unaffected, a testament to the careful way the adults around her worked to shield her from the full weight of the ongoing danger. Mia had grown accustomed to her constant escort, a quiet, capable woman named Charlotte, different from Lily's tutor of the same name, who accompanied her whenever she stepped beyond the immediate confines of the main house. Though initially frustrating, Mia found herself grateful for the companionship, and Charlotte proved a valuable source of information about the household's history and customs. "How long have you served this family?" Mia asked one afternoon as they walked together through the gardens, Lily skipping ahead of them, chasing butterflies with gleeful abandon. "Nearly 10 years, Charlotte replied. "I came here shortly after Damien's father passed the leadership role to him. It was a difficult transition, especially given how young he was, to assume such significant responsibility. He seems remarkably composed for someone who took on such weight so early," Mia observed. Charlotte smiled knowingly. "He has grown into the role admirably, though it cost him dearly along the way. Losing Elena so soon after becoming alpha nearly broke him entirely. If it weren't for Lily needing him, I genuinely wonder whether he would have recovered his footing at all." Mia considered this, watching Lily's carefree laughter drift across the garden as she pursued a particularly elusive butterfly. "It's remarkable how much strength that little girl carries within her, given everything she's already endured. She takes after both her parents in that regard," Charlotte said. "Elena was known throughout the community for her remarkable resilience and warmth. It's part of why her loss struck so many people so deeply, beyond just Damien's immediate family." As they continued their walk, Mia noticed a commotion near the estate's main entrance, several vehicles arriving in quick succession, disgorging figures Mia did not recognize. Charlotte's posture immediately straightened with alert attention. "Visitors," Charlotte murmured. "Unexpected ones, by the looks of things." Mia watched as Damien emerged from the house to greet the arriving group, his posture formal and guarded, in a way she had not witnessed since her earliest days at the estate. The visitors, several men and women dressed in dark, tailored clothing, carried themselves with the same commanding presence Mia had come to recognize among prominent members of this hidden community. "Who are they?" Mia asked quietly. "Representatives from the regional council," Charlotte explained, her voice lowering. "They oversee matters between different pack territories, mediate disputes, that sort of thing. Their unexpected arrival likely relates to the recent tension with Kessler's family." Mia felt a fresh wave of apprehension settle over her, sensing that this visit carried significant weight for the ongoing conflict threatening the estate's peace. She watched from a careful distance as Damien led the visiting delegation into the main house, his expression carefully neutral despite the obvious tension evident in his rigid posture. Later that evening, after Lily had been settled into bed following an excited recounting of her butterfly-chasing adventures, Mia found Grace in the kitchen, her expression thoughtful as she prepared a late evening tea service. "The council members," Mia said carefully. "Charlotte mentioned they're here, regarding the situation with Kessler's family." Grace nodded, setting cups carefully onto a tray. "The recent scouting incident, along with the earlier attack, has drawn official attention. The council wants assurances that this conflict will not escalate into something far more dangerous for the broader community." "Could it escalate that significantly?" Mia asked, alarm creeping into her voice. "It's possible," Grace admitted. "Territorial disputes between powerful families have, historically, sometimes led to significant conflict when left unresolved. The council's involvement suggests they view this situation with considerable seriousness." Mia felt her earlier apprehension deepen substantially at this revelation. She had understood, in an abstract sense, that danger surrounded the estate, but the possibility of the conflict growing into something the broader hidden community felt compelled to formally address introduced a new, sobering scope to the threat. Is there anything I should be doing to help protect Lily if things grow worse? Mia asked. Grace's expression softened with something like admiration. You are already doing precisely what matters most, dear, providing her with steady comfort and security amid all this uncertainty. That matters more than you likely realize. As Grace carried the prepared tea service toward the study where Damien remained in conference with the visiting council members, Mia lingered in the quiet kitchen, her mind turning over everything she had learned. She thought of Nathan's earlier warnings, his concern that her presence introduced additional vulnerability into an already precarious situation. Perhaps, she considered uncomfortably, his caution had carried more merit than she had initially wanted to acknowledge. Determined to better understand the full scope of the unfolding situation, Mia made her way quietly toward the study, hovering just outside the partially closed door, listening carefully to the muffled conversation within. The attack on your estate, followed by scouts probing your boundary just weeks later, suggests Kessler intends further escalation, came an unfamiliar voice, carrying the same commanding authority Mia had noticed among the visiting delegation. The council cannot ignore such blatant provocation indefinitely. I am fully aware of the severity of the situation, Damien's voice replied, tension evident beneath his controlled tone. I have already increased security measures significantly, and remain prepared to respond to any further provocation. There are also reports, another voice interjected, this one carrying a note of pointed inquiry, regarding an ordinary human residing within your estate. Reports suggesting this individual may have become a specific target for Kessler's continued schemes. Mia's breath caught as the conversation turned directly toward her presence within the household. The woman in question saved my daughter's life, Damien said firmly, his tone carrying an edge of protective warning. She remains under my full protection, and I will not entertain any suggestion that her presence here constitutes an unacceptable liability. We are not suggesting anything of the sort, the first council member replied carefully, merely noting that her continued presence introduces additional complexity to an already volatile situation. Perhaps, for her own safety as much as the estate's broader security, alternative arrangements might be considered. Mia's stomach twisted painfully at the implication behind those carefully measured words. Were they suggesting she should leave entirely, removed from the estate for the sake of everyone's safety? I will consider all available options, Damien said, his voice carefully neutral despite what Mia suspected was considerable internal conflict. But any decisions regarding her continued presence here remain mine to make, not the council's. The conversation shifted toward other matters, discussions of security protocols and potential negotiations with Kessler's representatives, and Mia stepped quietly away from the door, her mind racing with unwelcome new uncertainty. Had her presence truly become such a significant liability that the region's governing council felt compelled to address it directly? She made her way back toward her room, troubled thoughts swirling relentlessly through her mind, uncertain whether the fragile place she had carved out for herself within this extraordinary household might soon be dissolved entirely by forces far beyond her control. Sleep proved elusive that night, Mia's thoughts circling endlessly around the council's pointed suggestion, and Damien's carefully worded, if firm, refusal to immediately dismiss it. She rose before dawn, unable to settle her restless mind, and made her way quietly toward the estate's kitchen, hoping perhaps a warm drink might ease her troubled thoughts. To her surprise, she found Nathan already there, seated at the small kitchen table with a cup of tea, his expression unusually contemplative rather than guarded as she had come to expect from him. Nathan asked, glancing up as she entered. No, Mia admitted, hesitating in the doorway, before deciding to proceed despite the lingering tension that had always existed between them. She moved to prepare her own cup of tea, choosing the chair across from him. I overheard part of the council's conversation last night, Mia said carefully, about my presence here, potentially causing complications. Nathan's expression grew thoughtful, rather than immediately defensive. I imagine that was difficult to hear. It was, Mia admitted, though I suspect you likely agree with their assessment, given your own concerns since I first arrived. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, turning his cup slowly between his hands. I will admit, my initial caution stemmed from genuine concern about the risks your presence might introduce. However, he paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. I have observed these past weeks the genuine difference your presence has made for Lily. The nightmares that once plagued her nightly have grown increasingly rare. Her laughter, which had grown so scarce since Elena's passing, has returned in full measure. Mia blinked, surprised by this unexpected acknowledgement from a man who had shown her nothing but guarded suspicion since her arrival. I still hold reservations, Nathan continued, about the additional danger your continued presence might invite. But I no longer believe those risks outweigh the genuine good you have brought to this household, particularly for Lily, and if I am honest, for Damien as well. Thank you, Mia said quietly, genuinely moved by the unexpected shift in his demeanor. That means more than you probably realize, given how difficult you've made things seem at times. A faint, almost rueful smile touched Nathan's lips. I have served this family faithfully for many years, Mia. My caution comes from that same loyalty, however unwelcoming it may have appeared. But loyalty also requires recognizing when circumstances have genuinely changed for the better. As dawn light began filtering through the kitchen windows, casting a soft golden glow across the room, Mia felt a small but significant weight lift from her shoulders. Whatever challenges the council's involvement might still bring, she no longer faced them entirely alone, without allies among this initially guarded household. Nathan's grudging but genuine acceptance offered a small, steady comfort amid the mounting uncertainty still swirling around her place, within this extraordinary, dangerous, and increasingly precious new life she had chosen to embrace. Later that morning, Damien sought Mia out personally, finding her in the garden where she sat watching Lily practice cartwheels across the soft grass under Charlotte's careful supervision. His expression carried the weight of a difficult conversation still weighing on his mind. I imagine you overheard at least part of last night's discussion with the council, Damien said, settling onto the bench beside her. I did, Mia admitted, enough to understand they view my presence here as a complication. They suggested I consider relocating you elsewhere, somewhere less directly connected to the ongoing conflict, Damien said carefully. For your own safety, they argued, as much as for broader security concerns. Mia's chest tightened with anxious anticipation, uncertain what conclusion Damien had reached regarding this pointed suggestion. And what did you decide? Damien turned to face her fully, his amber eyes carrying unmistakable conviction. I told them that decision remains mine alone to make, not theirs. And I have no intention of sending you away, Mia. Not while Lily needs you, and not while I find myself needing your steady presence far more than I initially anticipated. Relief flooded through Mia so intensely that she felt momentarily lightheaded. I was afraid you might feel pressured to reconsider, given the council's authority. Their authority extends to matters of broader regional governance, Damien said firmly, not to decisions regarding who remains welcome within my own household. You belong here, Mia, for as long as you choose to stay. The quiet conviction in his words, combined with the warmth evident in his gaze, sent a flutter of unexpected emotion through Mia's chest, distinct from the earlier anxiety that had plagued her since overhearing the council's conversation. Whatever challenges still lay ahead, threatened by Kessler's schemes and complicated by regional politics beyond her full understanding, she found herself increasingly certain that she wanted to remain exactly where she was, standing firmly beside this remarkable family that had so unexpectedly claimed such significant space within her heart. That evening, as the household settled into its usual quiet rhythms, Grace found Mia in the library, carefully returning a book Lily had insisted on borrowing for bedtime stories to its proper shelf. I heard Damien spoke with you today, Grace said, a knowing warmth in her voice. About the council's suggestion. He did, Mia confirmed, smiling faintly. He made his position quite clear. Grace studied her for a long moment, something thoughtful passing behind her kind eyes. You know, dear, in all the years I've served this family, I have rarely seen Damien defend anyone so firmly against the council's wishes. Not since Elena, if I'm being entirely honest. Mia felt her cheeks warm at the implication behind Grace's words, though she said nothing, uncertain how to properly respond to such a weighty observation. I only mention it, Grace continued gently, because I think it's important you understand the significance of his choice. This isn't merely about Lily's attachment to you anymore, Mia. Whatever is developing between you and Damien, I believe it runs considerably deeper than either of you may be ready to fully acknowledge. Mia absorbed this observation quietly, her mind turning back to the vulnerable admission Damien had shared on the balcony weeks earlier, and the warmth that had passed between them just that afternoon in the garden. Perhaps Grace's assessment held more truth than Mia had allowed herself to consciously recognize. As she made her way toward her room that night, the weight of the day's events settling comfortably rather than anxiously across her shoulders, Mia found herself cautiously embracing the possibility that her presence within this extraordinary household represented something far more significant than a temporary arrangement born of gratitude and necessity. Whatever the future held, she felt increasingly certain that her heart had already made its choice, regardless of the dangers and complications still surrounding the path ahead. In the weeks that followed the council's visit, a quiet transformation continued unfolding between Mia and Damien, subtle at first, then increasingly unmistakable to everyone within the household who paid close attention. Their evening conversations on the balcony became a steady ritual, extending longer each night, as the careful walls both had maintained slowly began to lower. "Tell me something about your life before all this," Damien said one evening, settling into his usual spot beside her, close enough now that their shoulders nearly touched. "I know so little about who you were before Lily walked into that diner." Mia considered the question, memories of her ordinary, sometimes difficult past drifting through her mind. "There isn't much to tell, honestly. I grew up in a small town, nothing like this estate. My parents worked hard, ordinary jobs, and I followed a similarly ordinary path. I married young, thought I had found the life I wanted, and then discovered otherwise." Damien's expression grew attentive, sensing the weight behind her carefully measured words. "What happened?" "My husband decided, partway through our marriage, that he wanted a different life than the one we had built together," Mia said, her voice carrying the practiced neutrality of old, processed pain. "By the time the divorce finalized, I had very little left, financially or otherwise. The diner job was meant to be temporary, just until I figured out my next steps. Then Lily walked through that door, and everything changed." "I'm sorry," Damien said quietly, "that you experienced such pain before finding your way here." "I'm not," Mia said, surprising herself with the genuine conviction in her words. "If things had gone differently, if my marriage hadn't fallen apart, I likely wouldn't have been working at that diner at all. I wouldn't have been there when Lily needed help. Sometimes I think our hardest moments prepare us for the exact place we're meant to be." Damien studied her with unmistakable admiration, something warm and unguarded settling into his typically composed features. "You have a remarkable way of finding meaning in difficult circumstances, Mia. It's one of the many qualities I've come to deeply admire about you." The word admire hung between them, charged with unspoken possibility, and Mia felt her pulse quicken at the sincerity evident in his amber eyes. "Damien," she said softly, "these evening conversations, this growing closeness between us, I need to understand what it means, for both our sakes." Damien was quiet for a long moment, his expression carrying the weight of careful consideration, before he finally spoke. "I have not allowed myself to feel this way about anyone since Elena's passing. For 2 years, I convinced myself that part of my heart had simply closed permanently, that my only remaining purpose was protecting Lily and fulfilling my responsibilities to this community. Then you walked into our lives, and slowly, almost against my own resistance, I found that closed part of myself opening once more." Mia's breath caught at the raw vulnerability in his words. "I feel it too," she admitted quietly. "This connection between us. I wasn't looking for anything like this, especially not somewhere as complicated as this world you've shown me. But I can't deny what's developing here, Damien." He reached over slowly, his hand covering hers where it rested on the balcony railing, warm and steady. "Then perhaps we should stop denying it, and instead, allow ourselves to explore what this connection might become." The moment stretched between them, tender and significant, until the soft sound of small feet pattering across the hallway interrupted their quiet intimacy. Lily appeared in the doorway leading to the balcony, rubbing sleepy eyes, her small face brightening upon spotting them together. "I had a bad dream," Lily said softly, padding across the balcony toward them. "Can I sleep with you tonight, Mia?" Mia exchanged a warm glance with Damien, before scooping the little girl into her arms. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's get you back to bed." As she carried Lily back toward her bedroom, the little girl already drifting back toward sleep against her shoulder, Mia felt Damien's gaze following them with unmistakable warmth, and something that looked remarkably like hope, for a future he had perhaps believed permanently lost to him. The following days brought a new lightness to the estate's atmosphere, despite the ongoing tension surrounding Kessler's continued schemes. Mia and Damien's growing closeness had not gone unnoticed by the household staff, most of whom seemed genuinely pleased by the development. Grace's knowing smiles grew more frequent, and even Nathan's guarded reserve softened further as he witnessed the positive transformation in Damien's demeanor. However, not every reaction to their growing relationship proved welcoming. During a visit from several prominent community members, gathered to discuss ongoing negotiations regarding the Kessler conflict, Mia overheard pointed whispers among some attendees regarding her presence at Damien's side during the gathering. An ordinary human, elevated to such a significant position within the Alpha's household, one woman murmured to her companion, not quite quietly enough to escape Mia's notice. It's simply unprecedented. What message does this send to our community about the importance of proper heritage and tradition? Mia felt her cheeks flush with discomfort, though she maintained her composure, refusing to let the pointed comment visibly affect her. Damien, noticing her sudden tension, moved closer, his hand finding the small of her back in a gesture of quiet, protective support. "Pay them no mind," he murmured quietly. "Tradition matters, certainly, but so does genuine character and loyalty, qualities you have demonstrated far beyond what mere heritage could ever guarantee." Despite his reassurance, Mia couldn't entirely shake the unease those whispered comments had stirred within her. She understood, on some level, that her growing relationship with Damien carried implications far beyond simple romantic connection, implications tied to community expectations, traditions, and political considerations she was only beginning to fully comprehend. Later that evening, once the gathering had concluded and the visiting community members had departed, Mia found herself seeking out Grace, hoping for reassurance regarding the pointed comments she had overheard. "Don't let their narrow thinking trouble you too deeply," Grace said firmly, once Mia had shared her concerns. "There will always be those within our community who cling rigidly to tradition, who fear anything that challenges their comfortable expectations. But character, loyalty, and genuine love matter far more than bloodline alone, whatever those narrow-minded individuals might believe." "But what if my presence at Damien's side genuinely creates problems for him, politically or otherwise?" Mia asked, voicing the worry that had been building since the pointed whispers reached her ears. Grace considered this carefully before responding. "Damien has weathered difficult decisions before, Mia. He chose to defy the council's suggestion regarding your presence here. He will not suddenly abandon that conviction because a few narrow-minded community members whisper their disapproval. If anything, his growing feelings for you seem only to have strengthened his resolve." Mia found some comfort in Grace's steady reassurance, though the underlying tension surrounding her unconventional position within this extraordinary community lingered at the edges of her thoughts as the days continued passing. She understood increasingly that whatever future she might build alongside Damien and Lily would require navigating far more complicated terrain than she had initially anticipated when she first agreed to accompany them from that small, rain-soaked diner weeks earlier. One quiet afternoon, while Lily napped and Damien remained occupied with ongoing negotiations related to the ongoing conflict, Mia wandered into the estate's expansive rose garden, seeking a few moments of solitude to process the whirlwind of emotions and complications that had characterized recent weeks. She found Peter there, tending carefully to a particularly stubborn rose bush, his expression thoughtful as he worked. "You look troubled," Peter observed, glancing up as she approached. "Just processing a lot of change, I suppose," Mia admitted, settling onto a nearby bench. Peter set down his gardening shears, giving her his full attention. "The community gathering yesterday. I imagine some of the reactions to your growing closeness with Damien proved less than welcoming." "You heard about that?" Mia asked, slightly surprised. "News travels quickly within households like ours," Peter said with a faint smile. "But please, don't allow those narrow perspectives to discourage you. I have served this family for many years, long enough to remember Damien's parents, and long enough to recognize genuine happiness when I see it reflected in someone's eyes. I have not seen Damien look as genuinely content as he has these past weeks, since long before Elena's passing. Even though I lack the proper heritage, some within your community seem to value so highly?" Mia asked, unable to fully suppress the lingering insecurity those pointed whispers had stirred. "Heritage matters to some," Peter acknowledged. "But character matters more to those with genuine wisdom. You have shown remarkable courage, protecting Lily without any obligation to do so, adjusting to an entirely foreign world with grace and resilience. and bringing warmth back into a household that had grown far too accustomed to grief and caution. Those qualities matter infinitely more than bloodline, whatever some traditionalists might insist otherwise. Mia felt genuine gratitude swell within her chest at Peter's earnest reassurance. "Thank you, Peter. That means more than you probably realize." As she made her way back toward the main house, sometime later, feeling considerably lighter than she had upon first seeking solitude in the garden, Mia caught sight of Damien, emerging from his study, his expression brightening instantly upon spotting her approach. "There you are," he said warmly, closing the distance between them. "I was hoping to find you. The negotiations with Kessler's representatives have reached a critical juncture, and I wanted to discuss the potential outcomes with you before proceeding further." Mia felt a flutter of surprise at being included in such significant discussions, a clear sign of how far their relationship, and Damien's trust in her, had progressed since her initial arrival. "Of course, what's happening?" "Kessler has proposed a formal meeting," Damien explained, leading her toward his study. "A chance to negotiate terms that might finally resolve this ongoing conflict, without further violence or provocation. However, I suspect there may be more to his proposal than a genuine desire for peace." As they settled into his study to discuss the delicate situation further, Mia felt the familiar mixture of apprehension and determination settling over her once more. Whatever challenges this proposed meeting with Kessler might bring, she found herself increasingly committed to standing beside Damien through whatever difficulties still lay ahead, her heart now fully invested in the safety and happiness of this remarkable family she had so unexpectedly become part of. "What exactly does Kessler hope to gain from this proposed meeting?" Mia asked, settling into the chair across from Damien's desk. "On the surface, he claims to seek a formal truce," Damien explained, his expression thoughtful. "An agreement establishing clear boundaries and ending hostilities between our families permanently. However, Kessler has a long history of using diplomatic gestures as cover for more calculated maneuvers." "You think this meeting might be another trap," Mia said, understanding dawning. "It's possible," Damien admitted, though refusing the meeting entirely would carry its own risks, potentially escalating tensions further and drawing additional scrutiny from the regional council, who would view any refusal as unnecessarily provocative. Mia considered this carefully. "What would attending the meeting require of you? Would you need to bring significant security, or does protocol demand something more measured?" "Traditionally, such meetings require a demonstration of trust," Damien explained. "Limited security, a willingness to meet on neutral ground. It's meant to signal genuine commitment to peaceful resolution, though I suspect Kessler intends to exploit exactly that vulnerability, if given the opportunity." "Then perhaps," Mia suggested carefully, "the key is preparing thoroughly, without appearing to violate the spirit of the agreement. Ensuring genuine security measures that remain discreet enough to satisfy protocol, while still protecting against any potential ambush." Damien's expression shifted into something like surprised admiration. "That's remarkably astute thinking, Mia. You continue to demonstrate instincts that would serve you well within our world's more complicated political maneuvering." "I've spent years reading difficult customers at the diner," Mia said with a faint, wry smile. "Learning to anticipate trouble before it fully arrives becomes second nature after enough practice." Damien's answering laugh, genuine and warm, filled the study with unexpected lightness, despite the serious nature of their discussion. "I am fortunate indeed to have found someone who brings both comfort and such practical wisdom into my life, particularly during circumstances as complicated as these." As their conversation continued, delving deeper into the careful strategic planning required for the upcoming meeting with Kessler's representatives, Mia felt a growing sense of purpose settling over her, distinct from her earlier role as simply Lily's comforting presence. She was becoming, she realized with quiet satisfaction, a genuine partner to Damien, trusted with matters of significant consequence, rather than simply tolerated as an outsider within his complicated world. Whatever dangers the upcoming meeting with Kessler might bring, Mia felt increasingly confident in her place beside Damien, ready to face whatever challenges still remained ahead in their shared, uncertain future together. The morning of the proposed meeting with Kessler's representatives arrived under a heavy overcast sky, matching the tense atmosphere that had settled over the estate in the days leading up to the negotiation. Damien had spent countless hours coordinating with his security team, along with Nathan and several trusted advisors, ensuring every possible contingency had been considered before proceeding. "You'll remain here, with Lily, throughout the meeting," Damien said that morning, his expression carrying the weight of careful concern as he prepared to depart. "Grace and additional security personnel will remain at the estate to ensure your continued safety." "Please be careful," Mia said, unable to fully suppress the worry evident in her voice. "Whatever Kessler intends, I don't trust his supposed desire for peaceful resolution." "Neither do I, entirely," Damien admitted. "But refusing this meeting carries its own risks. I promise you, every precaution has been taken to protect against potential treachery." He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead before departing, a gesture that had become increasingly natural between them these past weeks, and Mia watched from the estate's entrance as his vehicle disappeared down the long driveway, flanked by several security escorts. The hours that followed proved excruciating in their uncertainty. Mia tried to distract herself by spending time with Lily, engaging in various activities throughout the morning, though her attention remained divided, constantly straying toward thoughts of the dangerous negotiation unfolding somewhere beyond the estate's protective walls. "You seem worried," Lily observed with the perceptive honesty children often display, pausing during their game of building elaborate block towers in the estate's playroom. "Just thinking about your daddy," Mia admitted, unwilling to fully hide her concern from the observant child. "He's attending an important meeting today." "Will he be okay?" Lily asked, her small face creasing with sudden worry. "I believe so," Mia said, forcing confidence into her voice despite her own uncertainty. "Your daddy is very capable, and he has good people helping to keep him safe." Lily seemed satisfied with this reassurance, returning her attention to their block tower with renewed focus, though Mia's own anxiety continued mounting steadily as the morning stretched into early afternoon without word from Damien's party. It was during this tense waiting period that the first sign of trouble arrived, not from the direction of Damien's meeting, but from within the estate itself. Mia was walking with Lily through the eastern hallway, returning from lunch, when she noticed an unfamiliar staff member she did not recognize among the household's regular personnel, moving with unusual purpose down a corridor, typically reserved for senior staff quarters. Something about the stranger's demeanor, too calculated, too watchful, sent an immediate chill through Mia, memories of those first predatory men at the diner, rushing back with unwelcome clarity. "Lily," Mia said quietly, keeping her voice carefully calm despite the alarm bells sounding in her mind. "Let's go find Grace, all right?" But before they could move, two more unfamiliar figures emerged from a side hallway, effectively blocking their path back toward the main house. Mia's pulse spiked with recognition. These were not estate staff, whatever uniforms they might be wearing. "Run to Grace's room," Mia whispered urgently to Lily, pushing the girl gently toward a nearby door. "Now, sweetheart, quickly." Lily, sensing the genuine danger in Mia's tone, obeyed instantly, sprinting down the hallway, while Mia deliberately positioned herself between the approaching strangers and the girl's retreating figure. "Where do you think you're going?" one of the men said, his voice carrying the same cold, predatory calm Mia remembered vividly from that first frightening night. "This is private property," Mia said firmly, refusing to let her fear show despite her racing heart. "You need to leave immediately." The man's lips curved into an unsettling smile. "We're not here for property, Mia Turner. We're here for you." Ice flooded through her veins at the confirmation that these intruders knew her by name, that this had been a deliberate, calculated infiltration rather than random opportunity. She backed away slowly, trying to buy time, trying to think of any possible escape route, while keeping herself positioned between the threat and Lily's escape path. "Kessler sends his regards," the second man said, closing the distance between them with unnerving speed. "He thought it only fitting that while Damien negotiates peace, we demonstrate exactly how easily his supposed security can be breached." Mia's mind raced desperately, searching for any advantage, any tool within reach that might help her fend off the approaching threat, long enough for help to arrive. Her eyes landed on a heavy decorative vase positioned on a nearby table, and without further hesitation, she grabbed it, hurling it directly at the nearest attacker's head. The vase connected with a solid crack, momentarily staggering the man, buying Mia precious seconds as she turned and sprinted down the hallway, shouting for help at the top of her lungs. Behind her, she heard the pounding footsteps of pursuit, the predatory calm of moments before, replaced by urgent aggression, now that their element of surprise had been compromised. She rounded a corner sharply, nearly colliding directly with Nathan, who had remained at the estate overseeing security during Damien's absence. His eyes widened with immediate alarm at her disheveled, terrified appearance. "Intruders," Mia gasped out. "In the eastern hallway. They know my name. They're after me specifically." Nathan's expression shifted instantly into fierce, focused alertness, years of training taking over immediately. "Get to the safe room, now. I'll handle this." But before Mia could move, the pursuing attackers rounded the corner, and what followed happened, with such sudden, overwhelming speed, that Mia could barely process the blur of motion. Nathan moved with impossible quickness, meeting the first attacker with controlled, devastating force that sent the man crashing backward into the hallway wall. The second attacker lunged toward Mia directly, apparently determined to secure his original target, despite the sudden intervention. But Nathan intercepted him mid-motion, his movements carrying a fluid, powerful grace that confirmed everything Damien had explained about the enhanced capabilities within his community. Additional security personnel arrived within moments, drawn by the commotion, quickly subduing both remaining intruders, while Nathan turned immediately toward Mia, his expression carrying uncharacteristic warmth and concern. "Are you hurt?" he asked urgently, his usual guarded reserve entirely absent in the face of genuine crisis. "I'm fine," Mia said, her voice shaking despite her attempt at composure. "But Lily, I sent her to find Grace. I need to make sure she's safe." "I'll have someone locate her immediately," Nathan assured her, already signaling to nearby staff. "You did remarkably well, Mia, keeping your composure and getting Lily to safety, despite the danger." Within minutes, Lily was located safely with Grace, who had immediately secured the girl, in a protected room, upon her frantic arrival, exactly as protocol dictated during any security breach. The reunion between Mia and Lily proved emotional, the little girl clinging tightly to Mia's neck, tears streaming down her small face, as the full weight of the frightening ordeal finally caught up with her. "You were so brave," Mia whispered, holding the trembling girl close. "Running to find Grace, exactly like I asked. I'm so proud of you." As the immediate crisis settled into the methodical aftermath of security assessment and interrogation of the captured intruders, word finally arrived that Damien's negotiation party was returning to the estate, having concluded their meeting with Kessler's representatives. Mia felt her stomach twist with fresh anxiety, uncertain how Damien would react upon learning of the attack that had occurred during his absence, an attack that confirmed Kessler's supposed peace negotiations had merely served as calculated distraction for a far more direct assault against the household's newest, most vulnerable member. Damien's vehicle arrived at the estate barely 20 minutes later, and he emerged even before the car had fully stopped, his expression carrying a fury Mia had never before witnessed from him. News of the attack had apparently reached him during his return journey, and the controlled, composed leader she had grown accustomed to had been replaced by something far more raw and dangerous. "Where is she?" Damien demanded of the nearest security personnel, his voice carrying an authority that brooked no delay. "In the main sitting room, sir, with Lily and Grace," came the immediate response. Damien moved through the house with swift, purposeful strides, finding Mia and Lily settled together on a couch, Grace hovering nearby with tea that had gone largely untouched. The moment Lily spotted her father, she launched herself from the couch into his arms, and he caught her instinctively, though his eyes remained fixed on Mia over his daughter's shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice tight with barely restrained emotion, once Lily had settled contentedly against his chest, apparently reassured simply by her father's presence. "I'm fine," Mia said, though her hands still trembled slightly as she spoke. Nathan arrived just in time. He handled the situation remarkably well. Damien's jaw tightened, fury and relief warring visibly across his features. "This was exactly what I feared, using the negotiation as cover for a direct strike against you specifically. I should have anticipated this possibility more carefully." "You couldn't have known for certain," Mia said gently, recognizing the guilt evident beneath his anger. "You took every reasonable precaution given the circumstances." "Every reasonable precaution wasn't enough," Damien said, his voice hardening with fresh resolve. "This ends now. Kessler has proven definitively that peaceful negotiation was never his genuine intention. I will not allow him to threaten your safety again." Later that evening, Once Lily had finally settled into an exhausted sleep following the day's frightening events, and once the captured intruders had been properly secured for further questioning, Damien found Mia once more on their familiar balcony, though the atmosphere between them now carried far more weight than their usual comfortable evening conversations. "I want you to know," Damien said quietly, settling beside her, "that today's events have made my decision considerably clearer regarding how I intend to proceed against Kessler. I cannot allow this pattern of escalating aggression to continue unanswered." "What does that mean, practically speaking?" Mia asked, apprehension coloring her question. "It means formal action, sanctioned by the regional council, addressing Kessler's repeated violations directly," Damien explained. "This may finally end the ongoing threat permanently, though the process will likely prove difficult and carry its own risks." Mia absorbed this information, understanding the gravity of what Damien was proposing. "Whatever needs to happen to keep Lily, and everyone here, genuinely safe, I support you completely." Damien turned to face her fully, something fierce and tender combining in his expression, as he studied her features in the moonlight. "Today, when I heard you had been directly targeted, I realized with absolute clarity exactly how deeply you have come to matter to me, Mia. Not simply as someone important to Lily's well-being, but as someone essential to my own happiness and sense of purpose." The raw honesty in his words, combined with the lingering fear and adrenaline from the day's terrifying events, broke through whatever remaining hesitation had lingered between them. Mia reached for his hand, holding it firmly. "I feel exactly the same way," she said softly. "Today frightened me more than I want to admit, but it also made me realize how deeply I've come to care for both you and Lily. Whatever comes next, I want to face it standing beside you both, not simply as a guest within your household, but as someone genuinely committed to this family's future." Damien's answering smile carried profound relief and warmth, and he leaned forward slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, before finally closing the remaining distance between them entirely. Their kiss, gentle yet carrying unmistakable depth of feeling, sealed the unspoken understanding that had been building steadily between them these past weeks, transforming their relationship definitively from careful uncertainty into genuine, committed partnership. As they finally parted, resting their foreheads together in comfortable silence, Mia felt a renewed sense of determination settling over her. Whatever dangers Kessler's continued aggression still posed, whatever difficult political maneuvering still lay ahead in addressing the threat permanently, she intended to face it all standing firmly beside Damien and Lily, fully committed to the extraordinary, unexpected family she had found within these once unfamiliar walls. The following morning brought a flurry of activity throughout the estate, as Damien coordinated with council representatives to formally address Kessler's repeated aggression. Mia watched from the sidelines as messengers arrived and departed. Security personnel conducted thorough sweeps of the entire property, and Damien himself moved through the house with renewed, focused determination. "The council has agreed to review the evidence from yesterday's attack," Damien explained during a brief pause in the morning's activity, finding Mia in the kitchen, where she sat with Lily, helping the girl with her breakfast. "Combined with the earlier scouting incident, and the original attack that first brought Lily to your diner, they may finally be convinced to sanction formal action against Kessler's family." "What would that formal action involve?" Mia asked carefully, mindful of Lily's presence at the table. "Various measures, depending on the council's ultimate ruling," Damien said. "Territorial restrictions, financial penalties, potentially even more significant consequences, if the evidence proves sufficiently damning. Kessler has clearly overreached this time, and I intend to ensure he faces appropriate consequences for repeatedly endangering my family." Lily, apparently absorbing more of the conversation than the adults had anticipated, looked up from her breakfast with a thoughtful expression. "Will the bad men stop trying to hurt us now?" Damien knelt beside his daughter's chair, his expression softening considerably as he addressed her directly. "I am doing everything within my power to make sure of exactly that, sweetheart. You and Mia both deserve to feel completely safe, and I won't rest until that becomes reality." Lily seemed satisfied with this reassurance, returning to her breakfast with renewed appetite, while Mia watched the tender exchange with warmth swelling in her chest. Whatever challenges still remained in fully resolving the conflict with Kessler, she felt increasingly confident in Damien's determination to see this fragile peace properly secured, for Lily's sake, and for the genuine partnership that had blossomed so unexpectedly between them. In the days following the failed attack and Damien's decisive move to formally address Kessler's aggression before the regional council, a subtle shift occurred within the estate that Mia noticed but did not initially understand. Members of the household staff began exchanging knowing glances whenever she and Damien appeared together, and Grace's smile carried an increasingly meaningful quality whenever she observed the couple's interactions. It was Charlotte, Lily's tutor, who finally addressed the matter directly, catching Mia alone in the library one afternoon while Lily practiced her reading in a nearby alcove. "Has Damien spoken with you yet about the bond?" Charlotte asked quietly, her expression carrying careful curiosity. "What bond?" Mia asked, confusion evident in her voice. Charlotte's eyebrows rose slightly with surprise. "The mate bond. Within our community, certain pairings carry significance beyond ordinary romantic connection, a recognition between souls that our biology confirms through specific, unmistakable signs." Mia felt her pulse quicken, with sudden apprehension and curiosity combined. "I don't understand what you mean exactly." "It's not my place to explain the full details," Charlotte said, seeming to reconsider the wisdom of having raised the topic at all. "Perhaps you should speak with Damien directly. I apologize if I've spoken out of turn." That evening, once Lily had been settled into bed, Mia sought out Damien in his study, determined to understand this mysterious concept Charlotte had alluded to. She found him reviewing documents related to the ongoing council proceedings, though he set them aside immediately upon her entrance. "Charlotte mentioned something today," Mia said, settling into the chair across from his desk, "about a mate bond. She seemed to think you should be the one to explain it." Damien's expression shifted through several emotions in quick succession: surprise, careful consideration, and finally something like nervous vulnerability that seemed foreign to his typically composed demeanor. "I had intended to discuss this with you eventually," Damien said slowly, "though perhaps I have delayed longer than I should have, given how significantly our relationship has developed these past weeks." "What exactly is it?" Mia asked, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. "Within our community," Damien began carefully, "certain individuals are drawn together by more than simple attraction or compatibility. There exists a deeper, instinctive recognition, something our biology confirms, as a genuine, unbreakable connection between two people, meant to share their lives together. We call this a mate bond." Mia absorbed this explanation slowly, pieces beginning to click into place regarding the significant weight her relationship with Damien seemed to carry within the household's collective awareness. "Are you saying that you believe we share this bond?" Damien met her gaze directly, sincerity evident in every line of his expression. "I have suspected as much since very early in our acquaintance, though I resisted acknowledging it fully, uncertain how you would receive such a significant revelation, particularly given how quickly our circumstances brought us together." "How can you tell? What are the signs you mentioned?" Mia asked, her heart racing with the implications of what Damien was describing. "Heightened awareness of the other person's presence, emotions, and well-being," Damien explained. "An instinctive protectiveness that exceeds ordinary romantic feeling. For those of us with enhanced senses, there are also more specific physical indicators, a particular resonance that becomes unmistakable once properly recognized." "And you've recognized this resonance, with me?" Mia asked softly. "From nearly the very beginning," Damien admitted, "though I told myself it was simply gratitude, or perhaps the natural connection born from you saving Lily's life. It took weeks of continued proximity before I allowed myself to fully acknowledge what my instincts had already confirmed." Mia sat quietly, processing this profound revelation. The idea that some deeper, almost mystical connection had drawn her specifically into this extraordinary family's orbit carried weight she hadn't anticipated needing to consider. Yet even as she absorbed the strangeness of the concept, she found herself recognizing truth within Damien's careful explanation, a resonance with her own experience these past weeks that felt undeniably significant. "What does acknowledging this bond mean, practically?" Mia asked. "For us, for Lily, for your position within this community?" Damien's expression grew more serious. "It means, if we choose to fully embrace it, a commitment considered permanent and significant within our traditions. Mate bonds are rarely broken once properly acknowledged and sealed. It would also mean formally presenting you to the broader community as my chosen partner, which carries its own complications given the reservations some traditionalists have already expressed regarding your human heritage. Are you asking me to make this decision now? Mia asked, feeling the weight of such a monumental choice pressing upon her. No, Damien said gently, reaching across the desk to take her hand. I am simply sharing the truth of what I believe exists between us, so that whatever choices we make moving forward, we make them with full understanding and honesty. I do not wish to pressure you into a decision of such significance before you have had proper time to consider everything involved. Mia appreciated his careful consideration, though she found her own instincts, the same instincts that had compelled her to protect Lily without hesitation weeks earlier, already leaning toward embracing whatever this bond truly represented. I need some time to think through everything, but I want you to know, Damien, that what I feel for you and Lily both feels significant, beyond simple explanation already. Perhaps this bond you describe simply confirms what my heart already recognized. Damien's answering smile carried profound relief and warmth. Take whatever time you need, Mia. I will not rush you, regardless of how deeply I already feel this connection between us. Over the following days, Mia found herself observing her relationship with Damien and Lily through this new understanding, noticing details she had perhaps unconsciously recognized but never fully articulated. The way her instincts seemed attuned to Damien's moods even from across a room, the protective urgency she felt whenever any hint of danger threatened either him or Lily, the profound sense of belonging that had settled over her despite the extraordinary, sometimes frightening nature of this hidden world she had stepped into. She sought counsel from Grace, whose decades of experience within the household offered valuable perspective on the significance of what Damien had described. Mate bonds are considered sacred within our traditions, Grace explained during one of their now regular conversations over afternoon tea. Rare, precious things that many within our community search their entire lives to find, sometimes without success. That Damien has found this connection with you, despite your different heritage, speaks to something genuinely significant occurring between you both. But the traditionalists who question my place here, Mia said, voicing the concern that continued to linger, despite her growing certainty regarding her feelings for Damien. Would embracing this bond publicly create lasting complications for him, for his position as alpha? Grace considered this carefully. There may be some initial resistance, certainly. Change often meets resistance, particularly from those most invested in preserving traditional structures. But Damien is a strong, respected leader, and love recognized through genuine mate bonding carries significant weight within our traditions, weight that ultimately outlasts temporary political discomfort. Mia found herself increasingly reassured by Grace's steady counsel, her earlier uncertainty gradually giving way to growing conviction regarding the path she wished to pursue alongside Damien and Lily. Whatever complications embracing this profound bond might introduce, she felt certain that the genuine happiness and purpose she had found within this extraordinary family outweighed whatever temporary resistance traditionalists might express. One evening, nearly a week after Damien's initial explanation, Mia sought him out in his study, her decision finally settled firmly within her heart. I've had time to think, she said, standing in his doorway with quiet determination, about everything you explained, about this bond between us. Damien rose immediately from his desk, his expression carrying careful hope mixed with apprehension. And what have you decided? I want to embrace it, Mia said simply. Whatever challenges we face, whatever resistance we encounter from those who question my place here, I choose you, Damien. I choose this family, completely and without reservation. The relief and joy that flooded across Damien's features in that moment surpassed anything Mia had witnessed from him before, even during their earlier tender moments together. He crossed the room swiftly, gathering her into his arms with a fierce, grateful embrace. Thank you, he murmured against her hair, for choosing this, choosing us, despite everything complicated about the world I've brought you into. As they stood together in the quiet study, the weight of significant decision finally settled and embraced. Mia felt a profound sense of rightness settling over her, confirmation that whatever unusual, occasionally frightening path had led her from that rain-soaked diner to this moment, she had ultimately arrived exactly where she was meant to be. Word of Damien's intention to formally acknowledge the mate bond spread quickly throughout the household, and reactions among the staff proved overwhelmingly warm, congratulations pouring in from Grace, Peter, Charlotte, and even Nathan, whose gruff but genuine well wishes carried surprising sincerity. I confess I did not anticipate feeling such genuine happiness at this news, Nathan admitted, when he found Mia alone briefly the following morning. But watching Damien these past weeks, watching Lily's continued healing, I recognize now that whatever reservations I once held about your presence here have been thoroughly answered by your actions and character. Thank you, Nathan, Mia said warmly. Your acceptance means a great deal, especially given how far we've come since those first tense weeks. However, not everyone within the broader community greeted the news with equal enthusiasm. Within days, word of Damien's intended formal acknowledgement reached the wider circle of prominent families and community leaders, and the same traditionalist voices that had whispered disapproval during the earlier gathering grew considerably louder in their objections. A formal request arrived from several senior community members, requesting an audience with Damien to discuss what they termed concerns regarding unprecedented precedent. Damien agreed to the meeting, though his expression carried steely resolve rather than any genuine uncertainty regarding his ultimate decision. Mia waited anxiously during the meeting, occupying herself with Lily in the nearby garden, though her attention remained divided, straining to catch any hint of how the difficult conversation might be unfolding within the main house. When Damien finally emerged, his expression revealed the toll the confrontation had taken, though his eyes carried unmistakable determination rather than defeat. How did it go? Mia asked immediately, searching his face for any sign of the outcome. They raised every objection I anticipated, Damien said, settling onto the garden bench beside her, while Lily continued chasing butterflies nearby, blissfully unaware of the significant political maneuvering occurring around her. Concerns about precedent, about diluting our traditions, about the message it sends regarding proper heritage requirements for those closest to alpha leadership. And what did you tell them? Mia asked, bracing herself for difficult news. Damien's expression softened as he turned to meet her gaze directly. I told them that true leadership requires recognizing genuine character and courage above rigid adherence to tradition, for tradition's sake alone. I reminded them that you saved my daughter's life without hesitation, that you have brought healing and happiness back into this household after 2 years of grief, and that the mate bond itself, sacred within our own traditions, confirms this connection as legitimate, regardless of your human heritage. Were they satisfied with that response? Mia asked. Not entirely, Damien admitted honestly. Some remain resistant, and I suspect we will continue facing challenges from certain traditionalist factions moving forward. But I made clear that my decision remains final, regardless of their continued objections. I am alpha of this community, and this choice, above all others, remains mine alone to make. Mia felt a swell of admiration and gratitude at his unwavering conviction, even as she recognized the genuine difficulty and potential ongoing complications his firm stance might introduce. I don't want to become a permanent source of division within your community, Damien. If my presence continues causing such significant conflict, then we will face that conflict together, Damien interrupted gently but firmly, exactly as we have faced every challenge since that first night at the diner. I do not intend to abandon this bond, this family we are building, simply because some resist the genuine happiness we have found together. You are worth fighting for, Mia, and so is the future I envision for us and for Lily. Lily, drawn by the serious tone of their conversation, despite her earlier absorption in butterfly chasing, wandered over and climbed into Mia's lap, apparently sensing the emotional weight of the moment, even without fully understanding its complicated political implications. Are you going to be my new mommy? Lily asked, with characteristic directness, looking between Mia and her father with wide, hopeful eyes. The question hung in the air, simple yet profound, cutting through all the complicated political maneuvering and traditionalist objections to the fundamental truth, at the heart of everything unfolding around them. Mia felt tears prick at her eyes, as she looked down at the little girl who had first called her mummy, that terrifying rainy night so many weeks ago. Would you like that, sweetheart? Mia asked softly, her voice thick with emotion. Lily nodded enthusiastically, throwing her small arms around Mia's neck. More than anything, Damien watched the tender exchange with profound emotion evident in his amber eyes, and in that moment, surrounded by his daughter's simple, unconditional love and Mia's growing devotion to their small family, all the political complications and traditionalist resistance seemed to fade into insignificance beside the genuine, precious bond they were building together. The council's ruling regarding Kessler's repeated aggression arrived exactly 1 week later, delivered by formal messenger to the estate's main hall where Damien, Mia, and several senior household staff had gathered to await the decision. The verdict proved decisive, formally sanctioning significant territorial restrictions against Kessler's family, along with substantial penalties designed to prevent any future provocation against Damien's household. "It's finally over," Damien said, relief evident in his voice, as he set aside the formal documentation. "Kessler will not risk further aggression, not with the council's authority now firmly aligned against him." Mia felt profound relief flood through her at this news, the lingering fear that had shadowed her since that terrifying night at the diner, finally beginning to properly dissipate. Does this mean Lily can finally feel completely safe again, without constant security concerns overshadowing her daily life? "It means significant progress toward that goal," Damien confirmed, though his careful honesty tempered any suggestion that danger had vanished entirely from their world. "Complete safety may remain an ongoing pursuit within our community, but this resolution removes the most immediate and pressing threat we have faced." With the external danger substantially addressed, attention within the household turned increasingly toward the upcoming formal ceremony Damien intended to hold, publicly acknowledging his mate bond with Mia before the broader community. Despite continued resistance from certain traditionalist factions, Damien remained resolutely committed to proceeding, determined to properly honor the genuine connection he shared with Mia, regardless of lingering political discomfort among some community members. Preparations for the ceremony consumed the following weeks, Grace overseeing elaborate arrangements, while Mia found herself simultaneously excited and nervous about the significant public commitment awaiting her. Lily, delighted by the prospect of a grand celebration, insisted on participating in every possible planning decision, from selecting flowers for the ceremony to choosing her own special dress for the occasion. "Are you nervous?" Damien asked one evening, finding Mia standing before her bedroom mirror, studying the elegant gown Grace had helped select for the upcoming ceremony. "A little," Mia admitted, turning to face him. "This ceremony will formally announce our bond before your entire community, including those who have already expressed such pointed reservations about my place here." Damien crossed the room, taking her hands gently in his own. "Whatever reservations remain among certain traditionalists, I promise you, the majority of our community has embraced this bond with genuine warmth, and regardless of any lingering resistance, nothing will diminish the certainty I feel regarding our future together." The day of the ceremony arrived beneath brilliant clear skies, the estate's expansive gardens transformed into an elegant celebration space, filled with flowers, warm lighting, and gathered members of the broader community who had traveled significant distances to witness this unprecedented formal acknowledgement. Mia felt her heart pounding as Grace helped her into the final touches of her ceremonial attire, elegant yet understated, reflecting both the significance of the occasion and Mia's own authentic character, rather than elaborate traditional expectations that might have felt foreign to her. "You look absolutely radiant," Grace said, tears of genuine happiness gathering in her eyes as she studied Mia's reflection in the mirror. "Elena would be so pleased, I believe, to see Damien and Lily both finding such genuine happiness again." The mention of Elena brought a bittersweet warmth to the moment, and Mia felt genuine gratitude for the way this household had helped her understand and honor the woman whose loss had shaped so much of Damien and Lily's journey before her own arrival. "I hope I can honor her memory properly, especially in how I care for Lily moving forward." "You already have," Grace assured her firmly, "in every way that genuinely matters." As Mia made her way toward the ceremony space, Lily waiting eagerly at her side in a beautiful dress of her own, dancing with barely contained excitement, Mia caught sight of the assembled community members, their expressions ranging from genuine warmth to more guarded curiosity among the traditionalist factions who had voiced earlier objections. Damien stood at the ceremony's focal point, dressed formally, his expression carrying such profound emotion as he watched Mia's approach that any remaining nervousness she felt melted away beneath the certainty of his evident devotion. The ceremony itself proceeded according to careful tradition, formal words exchanged acknowledging the mate bond between them, witnessed by the gathered community, and blessed by the presiding elder who oversaw such significant occasions within their world. Throughout the proceedings, Mia felt the weight of genuine significance settling over the moment, confirmation of everything she had come to understand and embrace since that first terrifying night, when Lily had stumbled through the diner door seeking shelter from the storm. When the formal ceremony concluded, Damien turned to address the gathered community directly, his voice carrying clear authority despite the personal significance of the moment. Many of you have questioned this bond, questioned whether an outsider without traditional heritage belongs within our community's most significant leadership circles, Damien said, his gaze sweeping across the assembled crowd. I understand such questions arise from genuine concern for our traditions and community stability, but I ask you to consider what truly defines worthiness within our world. Is it simply bloodline and heritage, or is it courage, loyalty, and genuine character? He paused, reaching for Mia's hand, drawing her closer to his side. Mia risked her own safety to protect my daughter, without any obligation or expectation of reward. She has brought healing to a household that had grown far too accustomed to grief. She has demonstrated wisdom, resilience, and genuine devotion to this family that many born within our traditions might struggle to match. The bond we share, confirmed through our own sacred traditions, speaks to a truth beyond mere heritage. I ask you to embrace this truth alongside me as we build a future together. A moment of tense silence followed his words before Peter, standing prominently among the gathered crowd, began applauding, quickly joined by numerous other community members whose warmth had never wavered throughout the earlier controversy. Even among the traditionalist factions, several expressions softened, apparently moved by the genuine sincerity evident in Damien's heartfelt address. As the celebration continued into the evening, Mia found herself surrounded by well-wishers, community members eager to properly welcome her despite earlier reservations, genuine warmth replacing much of the initial skepticism that had greeted news of the bond. Even some of the more traditional voices approached her directly, offering measured but sincere acknowledgement of the courage and character Damien had described. Late in the evening, once most of the formal celebration had concluded, and only close household members remained gathered in the softly lit garden, Lily found her way to where Mia stood, watching the last remnants of celebration with quiet contentment. "Mummy," Lily said, using the title she had first spoken that rainy night so many months earlier, now spoken with full understanding and formal recognition, rather than desperate, instinctive comfort-seeking. "Are you happy?" Mia knelt down, gathering the little girl into a warm embrace. "More happy than I ever imagined possible, sweetheart. Thank you for calling me that, for trusting me from the very beginning, even when you couldn't have known where that trust would lead us." Damien joined them, settling beside his two most precious people, his expression carrying profound peace and contentment that had seemed impossible during those difficult early days following Elena's passing. "We have built something remarkable together," he said softly, wrapping his arms around both Mia and Lily. "A family forged not through blood or convenient circumstance, but through genuine courage, love, and unwavering commitment to one another." As the last golden light of evening faded into the gentle darkness of night, the three of them remained together in the quiet garden. A small waitress who had once possessed nothing beyond her own resilience and kindness, a grieving alpha king who had believed his heart permanently closed to genuine happiness, and a small girl who had found, through simple, instinctive trust, exactly the family she needed to finally heal from profound loss. Their story, born from a chance encounter during a terrifying storm, had transformed into something far more significant than any of them could have anticipated that fateful rainy night. Mia Turner, once simply a waitress struggling to rebuild her life after difficult circumstances, had found not just safety and purpose, but a genuine, precious family, bound together by courage, sacrifice, and unconditional love that no amount of traditionalist resistance or external danger could ever fully diminish. In the days and years that followed, their bond only continued strengthening, weathering whatever challenges still arose from their extraordinary, complicated world, standing together always as the family they had chosen to become on that quiet, transformative evening when Lily had first, instinctively, called Mia by the precious title of Mummy. Weeks after the ceremony, life at the estate settled into a new, comfortable rhythm, one where danger no longer loomed as constantly over their daily existence, allowing genuine joy and ordinary family moments to flourish more fully than they had since Elena's passing. Mia found herself embracing her new role wholeheartedly, learning gradually about the deeper responsibilities that came with her position alongside Damien, while never losing the practical, grounded warmth that had first drawn Lily to trust her so completely. Nathan, whose initial suspicion had transformed into genuine respect and even friendship, became one of Mia's closest confidants within the household, often sharing stories of Damien's childhood and Elena's remarkable character, helping Mia understand more fully the history and traditions she had now formally become part of. "You know," Nathan said one afternoon, as they walked together through the same gardens where Kessler's scouts had once been discovered, "I never imagined I would come to view an outsider's presence here as such a genuine blessing. But watching you these past months, watching how thoroughly you've embraced not just Damien and Lily, but our entire community's well-being, I recognize now that true belonging has little to do with heritage and everything to do with heart." Mia smiled warmly at his words, grateful for how completely their early tension had transformed into genuine mutual respect. "Thank you, Nathan. Your friendship means more to me than you probably realize, especially given how far we've traveled from those early difficult days." Grace, too, remained a steady, beloved presence, continuing to mentor Mia through the various responsibilities and traditions of her new position, while Peter's gentle wisdom continued offering perspective whenever political complications arose from lingering traditionalist factions within the broader community. Lily flourished remarkably during these months, her earlier trauma fading steadily into distant memory as genuine security and happiness took root within her young heart. She excelled in her lessons, formed friendships with other children from prominent community families, and continued calling Mia Mummy with the same natural, uncomplicated affection that had first sealed their bond that rainy, terrifying night at the diner. One evening, nearly a year after that fateful storm had first brought them together, Mia stood once more on the familiar balcony overlooking the estate's moonlit gardens, watching Damien approach with the same warm, loving expression that had grown so wonderfully familiar over the preceding months. "Do you ever think back to that first night?" Damien asked, settling beside her, his arm wrapping naturally around her waist. "How different our lives were before Lily wandered through your diner's door." "Often," Mia admitted, leaning into his warm embrace. "It still amazes me how one small act of kindness, taking in a frightened, soaked little girl, led to everything we've built together since." "I believe some things are simply meant to be," Damien said softly, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "Whatever mysterious forces guided Lily to your diner that night, I remain endlessly grateful for the courage and compassion that led you to open that door and welcome her inside." As they stood together beneath the star-filled sky, their small, resilient family finally at peace, after months of danger, uncertainty, and hard-won happiness, Mia reflected on the remarkable journey that had transformed her from a struggling waitress into a beloved mother and partner within this extraordinary, once-hidden world. Whatever challenges the future might still bring, she faced them now, with unwavering confidence, secure in the knowledge that the family she had found, bound not by blood, but by profound love and unbreakable loyalty, would remain steadfastly together through whatever lay ahead. And somewhere within the quiet, peaceful estate, a little girl slept soundly through the night, no longer haunted by nightmares of storms and strangers, dreaming instead of butterflies, garden adventures, and the loving mother she had found through nothing more than simple, instinctive trust on the most frightening night of her young life.